The sound of steel rang out as Haku and Sasuke traded blows once more, both growling as their Kunai and Sunbon struggled against the others respectively. Zabuza was slightly impressed to see that a green behind-the-ears Genin matching up against his tool. Sakura, Kakashi ordered his pink-haired Genin, stay in front of Tazuna. Sasuke will handle the Hunter Nin. Got it, Sensei, Sakura chorused, bringing a kunai in front of her. Meanwhile, Haku blocked Sasuke's kunai with her Sunbon needle. Please stand down, I don't want to have to kill you, she calmly said to him. Please, like someone like you could beat me. Sasuke replied. Your confidence will only result in your failure, as I have an advantage over you. As you can see that all around us is water that you so thoughtfully provided earlier, and now I have one of your arms restrained from making seals. However, I'm not as restrained as you are, Haku said as she made a series of seals on her unoccupied hand, making Sasuke look on in alarm. When Haku finished her seals, she stomped on the ground, calling out, 8,000 needles of death. The water on the ground leaped up into the air as if it held life before reforming into 1,000 long needles of ice. The needles surrounded the Uchiha and looked ready to take him out, but the boy was doing something else. He closed his eyes and began to concentrate on his chakra. Remember the training and focus my chakra from my body to my feet, he thought as he did just that before his eyes snapped open. Haku hopped backwards as her technique flew towards Sasuke with quick precision. Haku hopped back far enough to avoid taking damage from her own technique, but once she looked up, she saw the Uchiha high in the air. A burst of chakra alerted her senses, as Sasuke unleashed his signature fireball technique upon the young girl, which she dodged by hopping to the side and threw a couple of Sunbon at Sasuke, which went through him and caused him to vanish from sight. A clone? She thought before she felt a second burst of chakra behind her and caused her to hop to the side to dodge a kunai. When she got up, she heard a voice behind her back. You're so slow that it's pathetic. From now on, it will be you that dodges my attacks, Sasuke said before continuing the assault on the ice user. He sent a side slash with a kunai that Haku ducked under and followed it with a kick to the girl's head, which was the same result as last time. Sasuke, however, continued to allow his moves to flow and follow one another, and eventually he hit his mark in kicking her in the chest, causing her to fall on her back. Zabuza couldn't believe that his loyal subordinate was losing a battle of speed. Kakashi told him so too. I can't have you underestimating my team. Now Sasuke's the #1 rookie in Konoha, Sakura's one of the brightest, and Naruto is the hyperactive, knucklehead, unpredictable ninja of the leaf. Zabuza started to chuckle before he laughed and turned towards Haku. Haku, it's time for us to get serious, he said with Haku slowly rising to her feet, knowing what Zabuza last said was a silent command on her part to no longer hold back. Chakra soon began to rise from her body, and soon it went above the level Sasuke was able to produce. Her bloodline began to react to the rise in chakra as water began to float in the air and surrounded her body before becoming ice shards once more and flew at the Uchiha in high speed, which he narrowly dodged. She then made a new seal, planning to use one of her unique jutsus. Sasuke stood prepared for whatever the girl was planning to use against him until he began to notice something. He began to feel the air becoming colder by the second, with Haku remaining completely still and held her hands in the strange seal. The air then began to freeze all around him, with the moisture in the air becoming solid. The ice continued to build before forming 21 solid and reflective ice mirrors. Haku then brought her arms down and simply said, crystal ice mirrors. What's with this jutsu? Kakashi asked himself as he examined the jutsu. It seemed familiar to him, but he could not place it. That's not a normal ice jutsu used in Snow Country, is it? He asked the Demon of the Mist. Exactly, Kakashi, but you'll never get to know, Zabuza responded before clashing his giant blade with Kakashi's puny kunai. From within the ice mirrors, Sasuke watched as Haku's image prepared to make a move on him and try to destroy him. Well then, are you ready? It's time for me to show you what my true speed can do, she said as she held up her Sunbon needles, with Sasuke standing at full alert for the following attack. But soon as he started to move, a scream of pain left his throat as he was engulfed in a torrent of metal needles. When Haku stopped, she saw that Sasuke was now riddled with needles and covered in bloody cuts on his face, arms, and legs. Sasuke coughed up blood before glaring at Haku. But before a word could be said, Haku prepared to attack again. Kakashi saw that last attack by Haku and tried to assist his student, but Zabuza was continuing his assault on the Jounin as he sent a horizontal slash at Kakashi, making the silver-haired man to jump back. Panting tiredly, he tried to think of a way to defeat him. Sakura, on the other hand, was extremely worried about Sasuke. She was becoming increasingly distressed at seeing her teammate getting beaten horribly and felt the need to do something and quick, or else Sasuke would die. It soon became too much to handle when Sasuke was engulfed in a torrent of needles, and immediately it caused her to turn to the old man beside her. "I'm sorry, Tazuna-san, but I must leave your side for a moment," she said, with Tazuna looking at the pink-haired girl for a moment before he nodded. "I understand. Do what you have to do, Sakura," he said, with the girl nodding before moving towards the ice mirrors before jumping into the air with a kunai in hand. She screamed loudly from all the practice in her years of being a fangirl, throwing the kunai at the cage, inwardly praying that it would somehow in some way assist the Sasuke in his fight. However, her efforts would prove futile as Haku caught the flying projectile with ease and held the weapon in her outstretched arm. She then looked towards Sakura with a disappointed expression being shown from her body movement. "If you kept quiet, you could have attacked me or assisted your friend," she said before she felt something was coming in her direction. Her senses proved itself to be correct, as Haku was struck across her face mask with a shuriken, catching the girl completely off guard. The force of the hit was enough to knock her out from her mirror and caused her to hit the ground with a faceplant. As she got up, a brand new voice spoke all over the bridge that caused both battles to stop dead in their tracks. A blast of smoke, and Naruto stood before them, his hands raised like Zabuza's, as if performing the hidden mist jutsu. "There's no need to fear," he said, grinning. "Naruto Uzumaki is here." "Loud little brat," Zabuza muttered before reaching into his shuriken pouch and chucked them at the blonde. Bringing out his kunai knife, Naruto prepared to block them when they were deflected and fell harmlessly to the ground. Looking at the deadly weapons, he saw they were Sunbon needles. "Haku, what is the meaning of this?" Zabuza demanded his accomplice. "Zabuza, I want to fight them my way," Haku answered, her voice muffled by the mask, making her sound like a guy. Raising a non-existing eyebrow at the statement, the demon of the mist sighed. "You're as soft as always." Looking down at himself, Sasuke cursed, knowing it was true. The wounds hurt, that was a given, but they were far from fatal. And what was worse is that he didn't know how to defeat this jutsu. He just couldn't see the reason for it. But Naruto was here now, and while the blonde was an absolute idiot, he knew that he would get serious and distract the false hunter ninja. "Hey, I came to save you," Naruto whispered next to him. And just like that, Sasuke knew he was screwed. "You idiot. What on earth possessed you to come inside the mirrors?" he yelled at his teammate. "What did you say?" "I came to save you, and this is what I get, you ungrateful bastard," Naruto yelled back. Taking advantage of their bickering, Haku merged into the nearest ice mirror, and then started to barrage with a volley of Sunbon needles. "Trying to follow with your eyes is impossible. You will never be able to catch me," Haku said, readying herself to attack again. "That's a load of shit," Naruto shouted out, standing straight up after the attack. He brought his index and middle fingers together and shouted, "Shadow, clone jutsu." In a giant cloud of smoke, 20 Narutos appeared. Letting out a battle cry, the real Naruto and his small clone army charged at the 21 ice mirrors, intending on shattering them. It was a massacre for Naruto. His clones were absolutely decimated, and the original fell right on his ass with a couple more needles embedded in his torso. "This jutsu uses the mirror's reflection to transport me. From my point of view, you seem to be moving in slow motion," Haku said, with the two looking stunned, seeing this guy's pure speed. Kakashi's head snapped upon hearing that last statement made by the ice user and turned his attention towards Zabuza, a surprised expression on his face. "I knew it, for a kid to modder a jutsu like that," Kakashi said when Zabuza started chuckling. "A jutsu like that?" Sakura asked, confused at what Kakashi was implying. "A bloodline," Kakashi said bluntly. "A deep blood lineage and superior genealogy." It's a jutsu passed down by your ancestors, he continued on, drawing a baffled look from her. So wait, that means... Yeah, you can compare it to my Sharingan. Those two are in deep trouble. In the dome, Naruto heard Kakashi's explanation and smirked hearing it. So what? Big deal, you have a bloodline. That won't stop me from fulfilling my dreams, he exclaimed, his voice never wavering. His exclamation caused Haku's eyes to soften behind her mask as the memory of the day she was found by Zabuza plagued her mind. The day that Zabuza found her after she was on the streets cold, hungry, and soulless, just waiting to die. But then Zabuza found her and gave her a reason to live. She became his tool. He became a father figure, and for that gave her the will to live again. Becoming a true shinobi was difficult me, and it still is today. If possible, I don't want to have to kill you, nor want you to have to kill me. Haku said, her voice shaking a little behind the mask. But if you come at me, I will destroy my kind heart and become a true shinobi. This bridge is a place where we fight to connect our dreams. Me for my dream, and you for your dreams. Tears fell from her eyes and collected at the bottom of her mask. Please don't hate me. I want to protect someone precious to me, to work for that person, to fight for that person, to make that person's dreams come true. That is my dream. Her voice then filled with determination. For that, I can become a true shinobi. For that, I can kill you. Sasuke-kun. Naruto, don't listen to him. You can beat him. Sakura shouted at them, hoping beyond hope that they would prevail. No, Sakura, don't egg them on. Kakashi said, stopping her from saying more, drawing another confused look from the stupid fangirl. Even if they somehow defeat that jutsu, they cannot beat that boy. What do you mean? She asked, making the demon of the mist laugh at her nativity. They don't have the strength to destroy their hearts and kill another person. That young man knows the true pain of being a shinobi. Zabuza said, keeping up the charade of Haku being a guy. A real shinobi can't be created in a peaceful village like yours, because you can't gain the most important thing, the experience of killing. And for what I've seen, only one of your wet behind the ears genin are capable of such a feat. He continued on, infuriating the copycat ninja at such a claim. I'm going to end this instantly, the copycat ninja said, bringing his left hand to his hitate. Sharingan again? Is it the only thing you can do? Zabuza sneered, getting real tired of this trick. As Kakashi started lifting this hitate, the eyebrowless man reached under his shirt and pulled out a kunai. Quickly adding chakra to his feet, the demon of the mist launched himself at him, aiming to take out Kakashi's Sharingan eye. It was too late to dodge, so Kakashi quickly brought up his right hand to defend. The kunai embedded itself in his hand, causing a massive amount of blood to splatter onto the ground. With his normal eye, Kakashi glared at the demon of the mist. You asked if it's all I can do, but you are afraid of my Sharingan, Zabuza. Kakashi taunted, blocking the pain from experience he received in the Third Great Shinobi War. A shinobi's supreme technique is not something that should be shown to your opponent over and over again. Zabuza snarled at him. You should feel honored. You're the only person to have seen it twice. There will not be a third time. Kakashi replied. Yeah. Even if you defeat me, you can't win against Haku. Ever since he was a kid, I taught him all different kinds of fighting skills. Even facing the greatest adversity, he succeeded, without heart nor fear of death, a fighting machine known as a shinobi. And even his jutsu surpasses mine by his terrifying bloodline. I gained a high-quality tool for myself, unlike the scrap that follow you around, he said, pulling the kunai from Kakashi's palm. There's nothing as boring as a man's bragging. Let's get this started. Kakashi replied, lifting his hitate, his Sharingan flashing. Zabuza jumped backwards to avoid any possible attacks, backing further way down the bridge. Hold on for a second. I'll use your own words and brag about one more thing. The last time you said this to me, I'll tell you this. The same jutsu will not work twice against me, wasn't it? I have already seen through the trivial system of your eye. In the fight, I wasn't just getting beat like an idiot. I had Haku hide in the background and examine every aspect of the battle. My tool told me how to beat your Sharingan, only seeing it once. Ninja art. Hidden misjutsu, he called out. Zabuza gradually disappeared as a thick, impenetrable mist blanketed the area, leaving Kakashi waiting for the next move. This fog is so thick, I doubt even Zabuza could see through this. Kakashi muttered under his breath. But then he saw some familiar shapes speeding through the mist. He deflected several shuriken with his kunai. Impressive that you could block those, Sharingan Kakashi, came a voice from behind Kakashi. Spinning around, Kakashi saw Zabuza standing with one hand in the controlling hand sign for the jutsu. But what really amazed him was the fact that Zabuza's eyes were closed. But the next time either of you see me will be the end of everything. You have overrated your Sharingan a little too much. What? Kakashi demanded, hoping that Zabuza didn't figure it out. Well, how wrong he was. You acted as if you knew everything, but you can't read my mind nor see my future, Kakashi. The Sharingan is simply a trick that makes your opponent think you can. It's basically an eye technique involving hypnotism and an attention to detail. Using these two abilities together, you can progress from copying the body to copying the mind to copying the jutsu. This is the dance that makes it look like you can predict the future. First, with that keen eye, you copy my movements and shake my mind. Then when I'm confused, you are able to figure out what I'll say and then become me. Then once the worry and confusion is at its peak, you attack with a cleaver trick. You attack my mind with a hypnotic genjutsu, suggesting what seal I should perform next. And then you copy that. Zabuza laughed. So the answer is simple. First, with this thick mist, I render your eyes useless. The demon of the mist proceeded to punch Kakashi in the chest, sending him backwards. Hee, and by keeping my eyes closed, I removed the chance of being hypnotized. Kakashi panted, regaining his breath after that punch. But why? You can't see anything either. Have you forgotten that I am a genius in the art of silent killing, taking down my enemy by just their sound? At those words, Kakashi turned his head on instinct in the direction he knew Sakura and Tizuna to be. Oh no, he thought, his body disappearing as he quickly moved to the pair, appearing between them and Zabuza just in time to barely block an attack. From the mist, Sakura's screams could be heard. Meanwhile, during Kakashi's fight, Naruto was barely holding on to conscious, while Sasuke was busy defending himself from barrages of Senbon needles. He focused chakra into his eyes to see better and ducked out of the way from another barrage of Senbon needles. Unbelievable, but how was he able to see it? Haku thought before she got her answer when Sasuke raised his head to look at her. Within his eyes were no longer the regular onyx black of the Uchiha clan, but were now the famed crimson red eyes, with two tomos in the left eye and one in the right. Haku now knew that Sasuke was now using the Sharingan that was now active. The ice user then knew she couldn't afford to waste any more time. She quickly exited her mirror and went towards a pro Naruto. Cursing, Sasuke pumped the last of his chakra into his legs, hoping to make it there in time. Kakashi clutched at his chest, trying to stem the flow of blood from the new slash going diagonally down his chest. He had managed to come between Zabuza and Sakura and Tizuna in time, but only with seconds to save their lives as a human shield. You were too slow, Kakashi. Zabuza growled at him, ashamed his skills dulled over the years, which was truly pathetic in his opinion. Did your desire to save that cannon fodder cloud your mind and make the mist even thicker? Even with that impressive eye, your ability to read my movements is dimming. Try and hang in there. I want to save you the fun as I return the favor for my defeat earlier. Don't worry about the genin behind us. He grinned under his bandages. Haku has probably already killed them. Plus, I am about to send you to the same place as them. I think you can apologize to them in the next life. Apologize for lacking the strength to protect them. He then went into a mocking laughter. It was Sakura who finally perked up, yelling, Sasuke-kun won't be beaten that easily, completely forgetting about Naruto. Kakashi smiled from beneath his face mask. Exactly. I believe in their strength and Naruto's determination, he said, not hearing her entire screeching. And Sasuke is the offspring of Konoha's most outstanding clans. You mean? Zabuza asked, knowing exactly what Kakashi was saying. Yes, that boy's full name is Sasuke Uchiha, a genius with the blood of the Uchiha clan running through his veins. Kakashi finished his thoughts. An offspring of that tragic clan. But that's the same with Haku. No one has ever defeated that special jutsu, he said, disappearing into the mist again. Sakura, stay here. Kakashi ordered his genin, causing her to stand still. Can you hear me, Zabuza? You seem to believe that I survived in this world with only my Sharingan. You seem to forget I was a former captain of the Umbu Black Ops, and you know what that means. And you know what kind of shinobi I truly am. I can do more than just copy jutsu. I shall show you my own original jutsu, he said, cupping his hand beneath a specific pouch on his jacket. In the ice mirrors, Naruto stirred and saw the hunter ninja on the ground. Geez, all you do is get in the way, Sasuke said above him. Smiling, seeing that Sasuke beat him, Naruto looked up to congratulate him. But his smile faded and his face turned into a mixture of horror and an absolute shock. Because Sasuke was covered in needles, his arms, legs, torso, and especially his neck was riddled with sun bond going through him. Why did you save me? Naruto asked, shocked by the fact that Sasuke did this. Sasuke, smirking slightly as blood leaked from his mouth. I hated you. Then why? I never asked for your help. I don't know, my body just moved on its own. He coughed up a large amount of blood and collapsed, and Naruto caught him before he almost hit the ground. That man, Sasuke gasped out as his eyes began to close. That man I swore to kill my brother. I told myself that I wouldn't die until I killed him. He winced as he looked at Naruto, don't die also, and then his eyes closed, and his body became cold. He landed a blow on me without even flinching and died protecting you. To protect a precious person, knowing it was a trap, he still jumped in. He is a shinobi that deserves respect. Haku said, her voice void of emotion as she stood up. Is this your first death of a friend? That is the way of the shinobi, she said, sadly stepping into the nearest ice mirror. Shut up, Naruto shouted at the fake hunter ninja. I won't forgive you. Still hunched over Sasuke's body, foul demonic red chakra emitted from his body and looked up to face her. His eyes were slitted blood red, full of malice and rage. I'm going to kill you, he roared out, his voice dark and demonic, promising death. Haku watched in fascination and horror as the red chakra surrounded his body. His face became more pronounced as his whisker-like marks becoming darker in color with his canines, turning to small fangs. When he opened his eyes, the evil feeling of the chakra overwhelmed her as she felt her hand shaking in fear and almost the need to run from him and never come back. She felt a multitude of fears going all throughout her body as she saw the chakra veil take on the shape of a fox. She felt even further frightened, seeing as how chakra was supposed to be invisible to the naked eye, and for an instant, she could swear that an image of an evil glaring fox. What is this chakra? She asked herself as his wounds healed, and the needles from his previous attacks popped out of his body. That's impossible for chakra to change like this. It feels so evil and full of malice. And his wounds are healing. Who is this boy? She questioned inside her head, while preparing for Naruto's attack. Kakashi and Zabuza all blinked as they felt the sudden burst of evil chakra. Kakashi looked into the mist desperately as he withdrew a scroll from one of the pouches on his flak jacket. Is that Zabuza? No. This terrible chakra, it can't be Naruto. Knowing he didn't have much time left, Kakashi flipped his scroll into the air with his right hand and moved his left hand up to his chest wound. He stuck his finger in the wound, and in a single practiced motion caught the scroll, opened it, and swiped his bloody finger down the length of the inscriptions. Spinning the open paper around his body in preparation for the jutsu, Kakashi called out to the demon of the mist, Zabuza, I know you can hear me, and you know neither of us have time to waste. This might not be your style, but let's end this fight right here and now, he said, catching the scroll as if rolled itself up in a focusing seal. Sounds interesting. What could you possibly do in this situation? Show me, Kakashi. Zabuza shouted from within the thick mist. In the ice mirror dome, Haku moved quickly and threw 6 sun bond needles towards Naruto. Naruto simply let out a demonic roar that blew them away. He then proceeded to jump up to attack her. She fled the mirror from years of training, and just in time as he punched where she just was a second ago, destroying the mirror. She fell to the ground, completely shocked that her mirror was destroyed, but she didn't have time to think on it when she rolled away as he came down on her. His punch destroyed the ground which she stood on, resulting in her tumbling towards him after trying to get towards another mirror. She tried to get away, but he grabbed her arm, nearly causing it to break. Naruto then brought his right arm back, and with all the strength he could muster, he punched Haku's masked face, forcing her to fly backwards through one of her mirrors and roll on the ground before hitting an iron rail guard. As her jutsu crumbled, Naruto roared out and ran on all fours like an animal. As he neared her, her mask started crumbling, revealing parts of her face. He brought his right arm back to finish her off and thrust it forward. As his punch was about to reach her face, her mask fell off. Everything around them stopped. The wind didn't blow. The birds didn't chirp. Nothing. Haku sat there on her knees. "Why didn't you finish me off?" she asked, her voice cold and dead. "What are you trying to say?" Naruto asked, his eyes back to their blue color. Haku was silent, but then she stood, her head bowed. "You don't understand now. You have taken away my reason for living. Zabuza has no need for weak shinobi or a defective tool." "You're not a tool," Naruto snapped at her. "What makes him so special anyway?" Haku bowed her head and told Naruto of her history. She explained how in Water Country, those with bloodlines were seen as monsters and tools, and civil wars in Water Country had resulted in the deaths of nearly all the bloodline users in said country. "My mother was one of them," she said, her eyes lifeless. "And when my father found out, he killed her and then tried to kill me, but I killed him. Then Zabuza found you." Naruto finished for her, his gaze saddened, knowing her life was somewhat like his, unwanted and alone. "Yes." Haku smiled, tears running down her eyes. "I was happy. He took me as his own and trained me to be his perfect tool. He was like a second father to me, but now—" She trailed off, looking to the side. "He has no need for a defective tool. So please, Naruto, kill me." Over with Zabuza and Kakashi, the copycat ninja went through 4 hand seals before slamming his scroll onto the ground. Summoning, Earth-style, Fang Pursuit, he thought out as rolls of kanji, symbols stretched out, and the ground crackles with immense power. "It's useless, Kakashi. You can't figure out where I am. Without your Sharingan, you're useless." The next attack will be the Lost Dash. Zabuza's thoughts were interrupted, feeling some rumbling beneath his feet. Opening his eyes, he could hear what he thought was the sound of dogs barking, which was joined quickly by cracking noises. Looking at his feet, Zabuza was shocked to see when several vicious dogs burst from the bridge, grabbing him and holding him tight in place. As the mist cleared, Kakashi saw Zabuza being held by a pack of dogs. A huge bulldog bit into both of his right shoulder, rendering it useless. 2 Great Danes held his hands, 2 Labrador Retrievers held his arms, 2 Rottweilers bit into his thighs, 2 Beagles bit into his ankles, and a pug bit on the long cloth of his atate, all wearing blue capes with smiley faces on them and leafetiates on various parts of their bodies. "Ow!" Zabuza asked despite the pain. "Earlier in the fight, I let you wound me, and your weapons stink with my blood, so my hounds couldn't miss you," Kakashi replied as the fog lifted. "The fog is lifting. I can see your future, and your future is death." "You say my future is death? I've had enough of your bluffs." Zabuza raged. "Zabuza, you've had your fun. You schemed your schemes. The day you deserted the village hidden in the mist and became a missing Nin, your name, and your reactions were reported to every village. We all know your failed coup d'etat you and your followers staged, and the attempt to assassinate the Mizukichi. Since then, you've been trying to raise funds for a second attempt, and barely staying ahead of the Hunter Nins, which is what brought you here. It's why you'd stoop to work for scum like Gato," Kakashi said, his voice filled with disgust. He then did 3 hand seals and used his left hand to brace his right wrist. A ring of crackling chakra appeared around him, and small bolts of electricity flowed from the ring into his hand. The bolts eventually stopped, and he now held a large blue ball of lightning, which let out a terrible sound like the screeching of 1,000 angry birds. "You're a loose cannon. The man you're trying to kill, Tazuna, is the heart and spirit of this place. And the bridge you're trying to prevent him from completing is the land's hope. You're willing to sacrifice this place and everyone in this village just to advance your own ambitions," he continued. "Spare me the civics lesson and philosophy. You have no right in my affairs. Do your worst." Zabuza roared. "Then die. Lightning Blade." Kakashi yelled as he ran at Zabuza, his right hand at his side, tearing through the bridge. He then brought his hand up to plunge it into his chest. But he saw a dark shape appear before him. Too late to pull back, he surged forward, thrusting his lightning-engulfed hand at Zabuza. Despite the tears, Naruto knew how Haku felt. He didn't want to do it, but sometimes there was no choice. Reaching into his kunai holster, he brought out his kunai knife and ran at her, intending at making her death swift and painless. Thank you, Naruto. Live on and fulfill your dreams. I just wish we met under different circumstances. I know we would have been friends, maybe even... Her thoughts were cut short when she sensed a massive chakra spike where Zabuza was. Just when Naruto was going to take a stab at her heart, she grabbed his wrist, preventing him from the killing blow. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but I can't die yet, she said, not realizing she added a suffix to his name. She then proceeded to do a one-handed seal and disappeared. What the? Naruto asked himself, seeing her disappear. Looking in the direction, he knew Kakashi and Zabuza were fighting. He saw her appear in front of Zabuza, her arms wide open, protecting him from Kakashi's lightning-covered hand. He felt his eyes widen, and he growled angrily. It wasn't fair. No one deserved to die like that. That was when he felt something in his legs. Apparently, he unconsciously focused the fox's remaining chakra into his legs. But he didn't care. Squatting down, he flew forward towards them. In a splash of blood, Kakashi saw with horror what he actually hit. Haku had reached Zabuza in time, but Naruto had shoved her out of the way and took Kakashi's prized jutsu through his chest and out his back, splashing the area with his blood. While Kakashi tried to get out the words, but Naruto grinned, despite the pain he was in. I couldn't let her die, he said, as Kakashi pulled his trembling, blood-soaked arm free from his student. Zabuza only scoffed, amazed by Naruto's tenacity. Saved by my enemy student all for a defective tool. Naruto, growling pale by the second, looked at the demon of the mist, his eyes hard and cold. Don't you call her that, he said, trying to cover up the hole in his chest. Ow! Haku put her hands over her mouth, trying not to throw up. I don't know, I just guessed. Naruto smiled at her, before puking up a glob of blood. Now listen here, no brows. She loves you like a father, he managed to yell out, going into a coughing fit, hacking up blood that got worse with each cough, causing him to fall on his back on the hard concrete floor. But he managed to smile through the pain. I'm dying, I know that much. And while I may be an idiot, he snickered a bit as he saw the look on their shocked faces. I know one thing about the seven swordsmen last rites. Zabuza winced hearing that. It was a tradition in the seven swordsmen of the mist to honor one request from the dying. That was if they earned their respect, and if it was reasonable. While he didn't want to admit it, the blonde brat earned his respect from their first meeting, being the only one who actually didn't fear him like the others. Fine, what is your wish? He asked, knowing it would to abandon his mission. I want you to abandon this mission and bring Haku and yourself to Konoha to dash. He immediately went into a hacking fit that caused his lifeblood to spill onto the bridge. Become Shinobi of a Leaf, he managed to finally say after his fit, his voice growing weaker and weaker by the second. That was a shocker, the demon of the mist becoming a leaf shinobi. Kakashi thought it was an insane idea. It would take a lot of strings to pull with the Hokage. And Zabuza was wondering if the blood loss was getting to his head. But sighing, he agreed. Last request accepted, on my sword. Zabuza agreed, sealing the deal, and looked at the dying blonde, forever burning the image into his mind in order to never forget. Thank you, Zabuza. Naruto sighed out tiredly before his closed forever. The scene was heartbreaking. Only 4 people cried for the blonde. Kakashi cried for a student that he killed with his own hands. Zabuza actually shed a single tear for the first time since he defected from a mist, leaving behind someone very important to him. Haku started weeping as she looked at this boy. Know this man who gave his life for her. And even Tizuna wept uncontrollably for the deceased blonde who gave his life to save a country that wasn't even his own. The only people who didn't cry was Sakura, because she was tending to a wounded Sasuke, and was because parents told her that Naruto was nothing but a demon. When she was as young as 6, they and the entire civilian council gave her a super secret mission to abuse him for her years in the academy and kill him whenever she got the chance. And Sasuke, because he was unconscious at the time, blissfully unaware what happened to the blonde. However, the heartbreaking scene was ruined. Well, what do we have here? Came a familiar voice. It was Gato in his fancy tuxedo, and he had brought all of his henchmen with him to finish the job. Looks like you're getting your ass kicked, Zabuza. Gato, Zabuza growled, clearly in no mood for the businessman's crap. What do you want? And what's with those men? Sakura, who had brought an unconscious and sun-bond-filled Sasuke over. What's going on? She asked. Haku only grimaced. It's our employer, she replied wearily, tired from using her chakra. Hee hee, Gato chuckled. The plans changed. At first, I wasn't going to pay you and let the hunter Nin from Water Country know where you were. Zabuza grimaced. He knew this wasn't going to end well. But then I saw this fight and thought that it'd be better to kill off you guys and give the girls to my men as part of job well done. Sakura gasped in horror. Haku lifted herself to her feet and glared at the short man who dared to betray them, as the rowdy group of men behind Gato leered at the girls, while the men were looking at them with absolute hatred. Gato saw her and grinned evilly. Actually, as punishment for breaking my arm, my men can have you as their little toy, and I'll keep the pink-haired one. After all, it's not every day that you find a girl with natural pink hair. I find it. He paused to lick his lips at gaining a new toy exotic. You will do no such thing to my daughter, Zabuza yelled out, slowly reaching behind his back with his good arm. Ha! Well, when they're done, she'll be calling us daddy, one mercenary cheered, while the rest laughed with him. Get them all, Gato called out, raising his good arm to point like the stereotypical bad guy. The thugs cheered loudly and begun to run forward, but a kunai sinking into Gato's skull stopped them in dead their tracks as they saw the crime lord fall to the ground with a bewildered look on his face. Nice shot, Kakashi commented, the demon of the mist. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Zabuza smirked. I owe it to the kid at least. You killed our meal ticket, one mercenary shouted at the ninjas. Now we're going to ransack the village, another shouted out. However, when they were about to charge and ransack the village, an arrow embedded in front of them. Everyone looked to where it came from, and every able-bodied villager was there. While they were only carrying farming tools, their numbers far outmatched theirs, making them a little intimidated. Kakashi, how much chakra you got left? Zabuza asked the copycat ninja. Enough for one last jutsu, Kakashi replied to the demon of the mist. Nodding, Zabuza started going through 44 hand seals with his good hand, with Kakashi following suit with 2 hands until Hei ended on the rooster hand seal. Water style, water dragon jutsu. The two called out in a union as 2 giant dragons made out of water flew up from under the bridge, slamming into the bandits, either sending them over the side of the bridge to their deaths, crushing them on impact, drowning them, or into the boat at the side of the bridge, destroying it as well. Either way, no one survived. There wasn't even a body left to bury. Not that they even deserved one, of course. But the cost was heavy. Naruto was dead, and nothing was going to bring him back. As Kakashi picked up the deceased genin to take his body back to the house, no one even suspected this single moment would change the future, not even the demonic eyes peering at them from another realm of existence and smiling to himself. What am I going to tell the Hokage? Kakashi sighed sadly. It had been 3 days since Naruto sacrificed himself to save Zabuza and Haku. He knew he couldn't procrastinate on an issue like this. After all, it's not every day you killed your sensei's son. Just tell him the truth, that he died protecting his precious person. Sasuke replied in a rare moment of kindness. But underneath his calm facade, he was trying his best to decry in front of everyone. While he would never say it out loud, Naruto was his friend. The blonde always stuck by him during their academy days after his clan was slaughtered. Being an orphan, he knew his pain and loneliness of not having a family. Sakura, on the other hand, clearly didn't give a flying fuck. Her mom always told her that Naruto was the Kyuubi incarnate, and she believed every word like a good girl. And the result was her undertaking a private mission under the civilian council to destroy the blonde-haired demon any way necessary. Smirking inwardly, she took pride in what she did to make him suffer, distracting him from his studies as a shinobi with her beauty, in her mind at least, causing him brain damage by hitting him repeatedly for doing the simplest things. While she was glad she had him wrapped around her finger, his death took a lot off her mind, so she can finally report back to her mom and finally get her beloved Sasuke to finally notice her. Zabuza, meanwhile, stood up, causing Kakashi to glance at him. Sighing, the demon of the mist said to the copycat ninja, "Listen, I'm just heading to the bathroom. I swore on my sword that I would honor the kid's request, and I'm not going to break it." As he headed to the bathroom, the former Mist Umbu member reflected on the last 3 days. And he wouldn't admit it, but he missed the kid. While he was an idiot, he had potential to surpass him. That's right, he was the one he mentioned to Kakashi on the bridge. The kid had spirit and brought Haku and him closer together. He felt like smacking himself for being so oblivious to his his surrogate daughter's feelings towards him. As he opened the door, he swore that if he broke his promise that he would take his own life. Haku, however, was sitting by Tsunami, both still shedding tears. Tsunami's was for the man who saved her and her son's lives, while hers were from what could have been. When she first saw him unconscious in the forest, it pained her to try and kill him, and for that she was glad that she didn't. His eyes looked much like hers before she found Zabuza. While she had no doubt that he was happy with his current precious people, his eyes showed her it just wasn't enough. Drying her tears once again, she made a silent vow to honor his sacrifice by living her life to the fullest. Tazuna drank himself into unconsciousness, unable to bear that a young soul sacrificed his life for a country that was not his own. A part of him died on that bridge 3 days ago, showing what a waste of life these shinobi go through. Naruto was only 12, almost 13, barely old enough to see life to its fullest. That was why he was going to name it the Great Naruto Bridge to honor the life of Wave Country's savior before he passed out. Inari, however, was taking it the hardest. Naruto was the closest thing he had to a brother, but he dared not shed a tear out of sadness. No, that would be an insult to the man who saved his country. The only time he would ever cry was out of happiness, never sadness, that he swore on the grave of Kaiza, the first hero of Wave Country, and his father. None of them knew what would occur in the next hour. Unknown location. Is this hell or is this heaven? Naruto whispered quietly to himself. The sound echoed through the darkness, and he heard his own question repeated many times, distorted in some way. He could feel the vibrations of his own voice rippling through his body. Then there was another voice, and as it spoke, the veil of shadow that had shrouded his senses was banished. No, this isn't hell or heaven. It is the place in between earth, heaven, and hell. It is the connection linking all three. It is the place of purgatory, or otherwise known as limbo. The words came from every direction, and the voice was unlike any he had ever heard. As his sight returned, he could see a figure in front of him. It was monstrous, larger than even the Kyuubi, though it shared many of the same characteristics as a human. Only he had purple skin with horns on his head. His long white hair flowed down to the giant's knees, and a dagger was held between its sharp teeth. The man wore a big, baggy white yuka. He was also slightly transparent and glowed with a strange dark power. A presence hung, not like a killing intent, but rather like death itself was radiating from the ghost-like man. It was so powerful that it made Kyuubi's killing intent seem like nothing. Naruto gulped. He had never felt this much power before. This man had to be a god or demon. Nothing else could house so much power. I am Shinigami, the god of death. Naruto's eyes widened at this revelation. He was dead. He killed me. My sensei killed me. Naruto's eyes dulled with sadness. He knew that something was off, but didn't know what. But what the god of death said practically was a chakra-reinforced punch by Sakura. He looked back at the Shinigami. The god's orb-like eyes were boring a hole in his forehead. What? The god of death seemed a bit taken aback that a mortal would speak so bluntly with him. Well, looks you got a set of kahunas to speak to the divine dash. I know you're the lord of the afterlife. Big fucking deal. Just send me to heaven, hell, or keep me here. Either way, I don't give a shit. Naruto said, crossing his arms in front of his chest, awaiting his judgment. He expected an angry scream and get banished to hell for all eternity. But instead, the god of death started chuckling, right before going into full-blown laughter. He waited for him to stop, but it continued on for 3 straight hours, bringing a bunch of tick marks on his head. What's so damn funny? He finally screamed out, getting tired of his laughter. Wiping a tear from his eye, the Shinigami chuckled one more time. You are a very amusing human, he managed to say, before letting loose a stream of chuckles. What do you mean by that? The blonde asked. While it was easy to confuse him, this was far by the most confusing thing that he ever experienced in his life. Kid, you are the first human to tell me off. No one, and I mean no one other than my family has told me off. And I find that hilarious. Shinigami said, his respect going up a notch, but now on to important matters. I believe you know that you have passed on. Yes, I kind of figured that out since I met you. Naruto said, scratching his head. Cut the lip, smartass. I'm trying to say something important here. Shinigami snapped at him. Now, as I was saying, I'm here to make a deal with you. Wow, wow, wow. Hold up, I ain't making any deal. Not without knowing what I'm in for. Why, you're not as dumb as you look. I take offense to that. Naruto protested. Whatever, Blondie. Let me guess. You aren't going to agree unless I tell you what I'm planning. Shinigami asked him, raising an eyebrow. In the words of the Yondaime Hokage, take it or leave it, Naruto said, bringing out a ghostly image that made the god blink to make sure he wasn't seeing things. You don't know the half of the words you just said, Shinigami thought, remembering those words from so long ago. All right, but listen closely because I'm only going to say this once, he said, making Naruto nod. I have been watching you closely, and I must say you have earned my full respect and more. And that is nearly impossible. So I'm going to offer you a second chance at life. I will send you back to your world. I will repair and enhance your old body to the point that you will be unrecognizable to everyone. He finished, making Naruto's eyes widen in excitement. What about the fox? Our blonde hero asked, wondering if he would be rid of him once and for all. Unfortunately, QB's soul will remain in your body. Now, before you complain I just can't take him out, it is the will of my mother destiny that you two stay bound together. Seeing the blonde frown and bring his head down in disappointment, Shinigami shrank down to the size of a 6-foot-tall human and ruffled his hair in a fatherly fashion. Hey, don't look so down. There's a gift that I'm going to bestow you as my avatar of power that even makes the mightiest demon quiver in fear. Naruto looked at the god in only slight comprehension. What's this power you speak of? He asked, and wondering what an avatar was. It is the power of the darkness flame, Shinigami replied. The darkness flame? Yes, the most powerful fire next to Amaratsu's flames. Powerful hellfire flames that will burn through anything, and I mean anything. The blonde couldn't help but smirk, but one thing came to his mind. What's an avatar? It means you will be my manifestation of death and serve me. You will be my subordinate, the first actually. You will follow my orders like your Hokage and sensei, but what I order you to do is your first priority, Shinigami said, causing the blonde to frown. Don't worry, it's not like you're my slave for eternity. You will still have all your freedoms, but when an order comes up, I expect you to do it. Everything else will come second. Got it? Breathing out a sigh of relief, the blonde relaxed. After thinking it over for a few minutes, he answered one of the highest powers in existence. I accept your deal, Lord Shinigami. I'm glad to hear it, but please no honorifics. You're supposed to be yourself, not some religious nut like those blasted Jashinist freaks. Shinigami sighed, really hating those guys. Jashinists? Wait, never mind, I'll ask later, but I got a question for you, if you'll allow it. Go ahead and ask, I just may answer it. Since you're the god of death, you probably know who my parents were. So, can you please tell me who they are? Naruto asked the question that has been bugging him since he was young enough to talk. I'm afraid you will have to ask your Hokage. Right now, you are not mature enough to handle this touchy information. But since you'll find it out eventually from what I'm going to put you through, I can at least tell you that our mother was of the Uchiha Bello Dash. What? My mom was a Uchiha? Why does Kami hate me? Naruto cried out in disbelief, doing a bunch of exaggerated movements, causing the god of death to sweat drop, wondering if bringing him back to life was a good idea. Kid, my brother doesn't hate you. I know this for a fact, trust me. He lied for the most part, making him stop in an awkward angle. All right, fine. Can I go back now? After all, I can't ask the old man if I'm dead. Naruto asked, standing straight up. Hold up before you leave. I have a couple assignments for you. Fine, lay it on me. Naruto sighed, wanting to get this over with. First, I gotta awaken your Sharingan, and I want you to name it, because it's gonna be a new bloodline, 2. Get rid of that forsaken jumpsuit. 3. I want you to kill 3 men, Orochimaru, Madara, Uchiha, and Danzo Shimura. They have been a pain in my ass for far too long. And 4. Don't fawn over that pink-haired bitch. Instead, pursue the Hyuga girl and that ice babe. Shinigami, Wait, why do you care about my love life? Naruto asked suspiciously. Shinigami actually chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head. Well, for one, I know that you've been secretly training / kind of seeing that Hyuga girl, though it's been too slow for my tastes. And I know that her love runs deep within her for a knucklehead like you. Plus that girl with that ice bloodline, well, she's hot and is developing feelings for you. And before you ask how I know, it's simple. Cupid is a good friend of mine, and he knows that it gets boring in limbo. So he shoots people for everyone's amusement. While it mostly works out on a lot of people, he does make mistakes, like when he seriously fucked up when he shot you for the pink-haired bitch. Take that back, Sakura is not Dash. Silence. The god of death roared at him. She's a total bitch, the worst girl I've ever witnessed to date. And trust me, I've seen Countess Elizabeth Bathory and gladly sent that bitch to hell where she belongs. You may be a god, but I know her, and he was interrupted again when the powerful deity punched him in the face. The blonde flew back a few feet before hitting an invisible wall, knocking him unconscious. He stirred a couple minutes later, but he was frowning, and his eyes held a dark look. Is this true? He asked, his voice suddenly taking on a sad tone. Yes, she isn't what you thought she was. She and that damn civilian council of yours have been fucking you over your entire life. That was the sole reason I punched you, to transfer a small part of my memory to show you I wasn't lying. After a long while, our blonde hero stayed quiet. Is there anything else you wish of me? He finally asked, his voice still sad, but happy at the same time in a weird way that only a mortal could do. Yes, I want you to drop your mask, because I'm sick and tired of you making yourself looking like an ass all the time. Don't sell yourself short on anything. If you want it, reach out and grab it, or you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Shinigami retorted on a mocking tone. Nodding, Naruto accepted Shinigami's terms. I'll do as you say, but I got a few questions, he asked. Ask away. For me, killing those 3 men, isn't Orochimaru the snake Sannin who betrayed Konoha? Who the hell is Madara Uchiha? Isn't he part of my family? And who is Danzo? Listen closely. Orochimaru is trying to obtain immortality, which is a pain in my ass. Just think, if other people were to discover how he gained immortality, the entire balance of life will get fucked up. Plus, that man has been doing a long series of sick and unusual experiments, thus forcing me to send good spirits to hell, because they turned evil because of him. As for Madara, yes, he's part of your family. However, he has gained immortality, but that's not the worst part. He took control of Kyuubi not once, but twice. He was the one who fucked up your life and pretty much cursed you to damnation. And Danzo is as worse as those two, but you're not ready to learn more about him yet. You have to be fucking kidding me. Kid, I'm a god, and gods don't lie about serious stuff like this. Then there was silence, a very uncomfortable silence, so Shinigami decided to break it. Why does this bother you? I know you took your first life before. Don't remind me of that, Naruto grumbled, putting his hand over his mouth to try and not throw up. Kid, it was a life and death situation. You did what you had to survive. But Dash. No buts. The man was a drunk and a criminal. You did your village a favor by getting rid of him. And trust me, he's in hell getting what he deserves. But Dash. I said no buts. In your profession, you're going to take many lives, and while you serve me, you're going to kill a lot more. Sighing, Naruto replied to the god of death. You're not going to make this easy on me, are you? Giving him a sharp, toothy grin, well, as much he could give with a dagger in his mouth, the god of death chuckled at the blonde. Damn straight I am. Now, before I interrupted you, what was the cause of your distress? All right, well, those 3 seem strong. I mean, I'm only at high genin level at best. Do I have to dash? Oh no, they're your primary targets. While I want them dead as soon as possible, they don't have to be killed right away. After all, what use would you be if you died on me? Shinigami said coolly. While it was kind of cold of him, Naruto knew that he was right. But they won't be the only ones. You will have secondary targets when I come up with them. All right, now for naming my bloodline, can you give me some time to name it? I can't really come up with something this important on the fly. Naruto asked, hoping that he could go back now. I'll give you some time, but for now it's time for me to send you back. Remember, death is your ally. Go forth and be my agent of death to those unworthy of their lives. Shinigami told Naruto as he faded away and the blackness receded. Barely a day after his death, Naruto's body finally looked to be at peace. Due to rigor mortis settling in, he was laying awkwardly on one of the futons within Tazuna's home. His legs were slightly bent in an odd angle, his body looked twisted, and his hands were pitifully trying to cover the gigantic hole in his chest. But his face held a serene look to it, and a peaceful smile to go with it. That was what Kakashi was brooding over. The man was a mess, his hair greasy, unkempt, his visible eye was red and puffy from the amount of tears he shed. Let's not forget, he was still healing from his fight from Zabuza. Sighing behind his mask, he sincerely envied his student. From all his experiences in his life, Kakashi never saw such a serene death face. Not from his fellow shinobi, at least. In fact, he only saw his sensei and his wife smiling upon their deaths. It was like they knew something everyone didn't, and to this day he still didn't know what they were smiling about. And now their son was giving him that same smile that haunted him in his dreams. Getting to his feet, the copycat ninja brought his hand to his deceased student's cold forehead and brushed his messy strands of hair out of his face. Naruto, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I promised that I would never let anything happen to you or anyone on the team. But just like with Rin, I failed you too, because I wasn't strong enough. I hope you're in a better place and talking with your folks. You definitely deserve it. Turning around, he headed towards the door and opened it up. I will miss you, Naruto. Nothing will the same without you. With one last tear falling from his eye, he shut the door. Barely 5 minutes later, a dark, powerful, and sinister energy transferred to Naruto's lifeless body, wrapping around him in a cocoon-like fashion. The energy started building up until it expanded until it became unstable. The energy expanded until it exploded, blowing the 2 windows in the room out and shattering the furniture, and tearing off Naruto's bloody jacket along with chunks of his flesh so it grew back within seconds. Our hero's body stirred a little before he woke up, breathing his first breath of air. Note to self, don't die again, he muttered to himself. Wait, I'm alive? Yeah, I'm fucking alive. He cheered to himself in joy. He would have jumped around hooting and hollering, but a sharp pain jabbed him in the back of his neck. Hey, brat. Shinigami spoke up after mentally slapping him. Gingerly rubbing the back of his head, Naruto looked around the destroyed room. Shinigami, I can't see you. Where are you? I'm speaking through your mind, and don't talk out loud in public. People will think you're crazy, the Death God replied. Oh. Naruto immediately stopped talking and focused his thoughts in his head. Is this better? Perfect. Now listen up, I want you to get out of here now. What? Naruto started to question him. Don't question me, do it now. Shinigami roared, making him shut up and scramble out one of the broken windows. He left just in time because Kakashi and Zabuza started kicking the door down. Shinigami used some of his power to write a message on the wall to throw them off. He finished the last letter when the door was reduced to splinters via Zabuza's giant cleaver. When everyone got into the room, most of them were horrified to see the destruction in the room. The bed Naruto's bloody body was on was gone. The windows were blown out, and any bit of furniture was reduced to splinters. What the hell happened? Kakashi cried out as he frantically started searching for Naruto's body. Kakashi, you might want to take a look at this. Zabuza pointed to one of the walls with the writing on it. Sasuke read it out loud, his eyes narrowing with every word. Dear Leaf Scum, we finally got him. And at the end of the message, there was some sort of symbol showing 2 stones next to each other. Who would do this? Tazuna asked, horrified that someone would do this to the deceased, completely forgetting what the hunter ninja do to their targets. Narrowing his eyes and clenching his fists, Kakashi answered him. Stone Country. They always hated us, especially the blondes in our village. He surveyed the damaged room, seeing parts of his students' flesh and clothing. He clenched his hands harder, drawing blood, and his eyes starting to mist up. It must have been the explosion core. Only they would have the gall to do this. Well, at least we don't have to carry him all the way back to the village, Sakura said, trying to play the part as the naive and optimistic Genin. But it was hard for her to try and not smile and cheer that she would never see the QB brat, as her mom called him, ever again. But how did they even know we were here? Sasuke asked, because this scenario honestly didn't add up. They must have been hired by Gato before he turned on us. Zabuza commented. The late crime lord was the type to do it after all. I guess so, Kakashi replied. That was the last they talked about it. Zabuza swore that he would utterly destroy any stone ninja he came across. Tsunami and Haku were holding their tears to stay strong in front of the men, but Inari, however, ran out the room just because he just couldn't bear the sight any longer. And the two honorable members of Team 7 were silently praying for Naruto's poor soul. The next month was going to be hell for most of them. But then they would be in one hell of a surprise once it ended. Panting heavily, Naruto collapsed onto the forest floor. The Shinigami kept screaming at him to run until he collapsed. That was a few miles ago, which was pathetic in his opinion. After all, he was known to be a stamina freak back in his village. Shinigami, why am I so weak? He managed to pan out. You just came back from the dead. What did you expect? Did you expect to be back at full performance once you came back? The god of death replied, almost in a smart-ass tone. All right, why are you so casual? Aren't you supposed to have a I'm a god, and you should bow to me attitude? Kid, I'm not my brothers or my parents. They have that commanding attitude. Well, I just like to sit back, relax, and do what I want. Before you ask what the hell I'm talking about, I'll say it, so that even you can understand. This is my attitude, and I'm keeping it that way. Titles, social status, and honorifics don't mean shit to me. You want my respect, you have to earn it. And yet you find a 15-year-old girl hot. Very creepy, you cradle robber. Naruto muttered. Don't you dare compare me to those sick bastards. I may be old, but I'm not going to go all pervert pedophile on anyone. So I find her attractive, big fucking deal. Shinigami shouted at his avatar. And just for that, I'm going to make your training seem like hell on earth. Now get up so we can get started. While Naruto wasn't scared of most things, even though seeing the god of death freaked him out first, hearing Shinigami scream at him brought him to attention. Now I'm going to bestow you the darkness flames. However, this comes with a price. Price? The blonde asked the Lord of Death. Yes, the first is that I'll have to implant the tool into your forehead to awaken the power I promised you. But first I must scan you to see if you will even survive the process. Shinigami said, appearing before him in his 6-foot ghostly form, and analyzed him with his eyes. Impossible, he gasped out. I can never get it, Naruto asked, worried that he wasn't good enough to receive his savior's blessing, and mad that there was something wrong with his body. No, it's not that. You have a seal on you. And not just QB's seal, a suppressing seal. Suppressing seal. Yes, and by the looks of it, it's been on you for years. Shinigami half lied to the blonde. There was a seal on him, but there was something else that he needed to study upon further. One of the great elemental nations is that. It's just as it sounds, it probably has been suppressing your learning skills and making you dumber than now. The god replied, taking a shot at him. Now, I'm not going to lie, this just made the process more complicated. Usually you have a 50% chance of dying, but with QB's chakra and the seal, this increases your chances of death to 99.9%. If you die, your soul will be destroyed with no possibility of coming back. Are you sure you want to go through with this, despite knowing this knowledge? He asked him. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm ready for it, and nothing will stop me. Naruto replied with determination. Don't say I didn't warn you. After Shinigami said those words, he hit the blonde on the forehead and transferred the power he promised. At first, nothing happened until the black flames of hell started to swirl around Naruto, making him scream out in pain. The rest of his orange jacket burst into flames and burned his upper torso. The pain was so intense that his skin ripped off and regenerated multiple times, and he started banging his head on a nearby tree. The agonizing process went on for hours. The blonde destroyed many trees and stones to try and relieve himself of the pain. His bones broke and re-healed, his hair fell out and grew back, and he started bleeding out of every hole in his body. For 3 hellish days, Naruto's body destroyed itself. The entire area around him was nothing but a destroyed wasteland. 10 trees were felled and broken into splinters. Any stone within the area was crushed into fine powder, and the grass was uprooted and stained with an untold amount of his blood. Even after 3 days of torture, Naruto didn't give up all of that mind-racking pain serve a purpose. That purpose was for him to live and become stronger than his previous life. Through the pain, he felt every repressed memory surge through him. The knowledge he so blatantly ignored, the people who wronged him, the exercises that he furiously put his body through, and the emotions he always wanted to show finally came to the surface. When the fourth day finally came, the last thing Naruto felt was his eyes bursting into a red haze and his forehead splitting wide open. After hours of being unconscious, our hero woke up and cringed in pain. He couldn't move a muscle without it screaming at him to stay still. It took another few hours of lying still. The sun began to come up. Cringing in a low amount of pain, he finally crawled to the nearest river to see any changes. When he got there, he was in for one hell of a surprise. Slowly standing up, he saw that he was as tall as Sasuke and lost all the baby fat on his face and body, leaving nothing but muscles. He developed some abs that needed some work to be fully defined to a full six-pack along with his chest. And from what he could tell, his shoulders were a lot wider and his arm muscles were much bigger than before. His face was well defined, and his whisker-like scars were darker like a tattoo, and his canines were a little longer and a lot sharper than normal. His blonde hair was definitely longer, that defied gravity with black streaks in it. But the most shocking thing were his eyes. He had the familiar Sharingan, only its 3 tomos were crimson, and the iris was like pure obsidian. Yet that didn't compare to the third eye in the middle of his forehead, its crimson iris staring back at him. Now Naruto did what any normal person would have done at that time. He freaked right the fuck out. "Shinigami, you fucking bastard. What the hell did you do to me?" He was greeted with a yawn and what sounded like scratching. Good morning to you too. What did you do to me?" he demanded, letting out a slight growl. "And here I thought I was doing you a favor removing the damn seal." The god of death yawned again, scratching his ass in limbo. "Wait, what? You removed it? How?" Naruto asked, completely doing a 180 in his attitude. There were a few seconds of silence, and what sounded like an exasperated sigh, what sounded like a facepalm, and the muttering of idiots. "Kid, I removed your suppressing seal. It took some doing, but I did it. Thankfully, it was worn down, which allowed less time for your gift to break it. And now, because your seal broke, I was able to successfully reverse its effects. In the time span you were screaming and unconscious, for lack of a better word, I fixed you." Naruto was at a loss. The freaking god of death fixed him. Not only was he granted with the black flames of hell, but he changed completely, and he felt better than any day in his life. His thoughts weren't cluttered, his body wasn't nearly as sluggish as it normally was, and for the first time in his life, he felt calm. It felt right. I don't know what to say. I'm not sure a simple thank you can amount to what you have done." He paused for a moment staring at his reflection, "But I gotta ask, why dash? You are undoubtedly wondering why you think more clearly, and you're more calm. It's slight, but it's noticeable, I'm sure. I told you a few days ago, the suppression seal affects absolutely everything about you. This includes your brain, and therefore your mind. Your thought processes are now natural. This means that you can think more clearly, you can be calmer than you used to be, now that you aren't tremendously chemically imbalanced, and you will probably have a much easier time of retaining knowledge. In simple words, you're no longer dumb." He then chuckled. "You're still an idiot in my opinion, though." "How am I an idiot still? I thought I was fixed." "Yet you're wondering why your Sharingan is not like your sensei's or teammates, or why you have an eye in the middle of your forehead." "Well, yeah, I dash. Well, for your information, because of the changes you went through, your Sharingan mutated from the power I granted you. And I told you that gaining the power of the darkness flames comes with a price. Now, before you argue, you agreed without asking what said price was, and the deal is irreversible," Shinigami said, chuckling how mortals always rushed into things without thinking things over. Now, there were a few things that Naruto could have done. He could have screamed in anger, swore at the god of death, fell into some sort of temper tantrum, or even killed himself. But instead, he let a small, true smile grace his lips for the first time in what seemed like forever. Why? He didn't know, but it felt good. Then he was laughing like there was no tomorrow. He was happy. He knew he looked much different than before. It would draw more hate from the villagers if they ever found out. But he didn't care, for he was finally free to be himself, not the idiot everyone came to know because of that damn seal on him. After his laughing streak, he deactivated the chakra in his eyes, something that he remembered from what his memories, until they were the true blue color everyone was familiar with, and mentally sighed in relief that his eyes kept their natural color. He turned to look at Shinigami to thank him, but instead of seeing his shadowy specter of death, he saw what looked like sweatbands, his Hittite with a black cloth on it, and a note. Raising his right eyebrow, he picked up the note and read it out loud. Dear Naruto, I would love to train you, but being the god of death, I have god things to attend to, like sentencing souls to heaven and hell. Yeah, I know I promised, but unlike Kakashi, I'm going to leave you precise instructions. Now what you see, there are special chakra bands that I acquired some time ago. Anyways, first you put 2 on your ankles and 2 on your wrists. They will automatically draw your chakra into them and steadily increase in weight as you get used to it. Now for your training schedule in the morning, I require you to hunt and gather your meals and constantly wear the weights to increase your strength. Now for the hard part, you're to run around this entire area 10 times. Do 500 push-ups, 500 sit-ups, 1,000 punches for each arm and leg, 100 squats, and various chakra exercises that are written on the back of the paper that I learned about. When it hits noon, you'll rest for a half hour before making 7 clones to work on the chakra exercises again, while you work on the Jugen eye in the middle of your forehead. After that, you'll hunt for your dinner and then sleep until 6 o'clock, where we will continue this regimen until further notice. P.S. Use your Hittite to cover up the eye when you're not using it. After reading it out loud, Naruto dropped the paper to the forest floor, knowing that he was indeed screwed. God damn you, Shinigami. He cursed out before he felt a mental slap on the back of his head. All right, I'm going, he yelled into the sky and immediately began his training regimen. When Shinigami said he would be making Naruto's training seem like hell on earth, he meant it. For during the first week, he hunted for his own food by gathering nuts and berries at first. But his demanding regiment was forced to hunt and kill multiple animals, ranging from rabbits to deer, increasing his survival instincts and his willingness to kill. His physical exercises were brutal to the core. It tore his muscles constantly, and due to his regeneration factor, Shinigami had him increase his workout routine every single day just to see how far he could push his avatar. Of course, Naruto wanted to progress even further, so he exceeded his amount of clones from 7 to 50 to get ahead in his training. It ended up with him having the worst headache in his short life and knocking him unconscious for a day. Boy, was Shinigami pissed, because shadow clones could only do chakra and jutsu exercises. He called him a dumbass for even thinking of using them for physical exercises and punished him by tripling his physical regimen for 48 hours straight with little to no breaks, making Kyuubi work overtime to make sure his vessel didn't destroy his body with Shinigami's physical exercises. On the plus side, while he didn't get any physical perks from his botched attempt on the jutsu, he gained a good amount of muscle memory to make things a little more bearable. While his training was absolute torture, Naruto couldn't help but admire the results. His body was now more defined like Ryan Reynolds. Some guy Shinigami compared him to Dash. His weights went from 10 pounds on his arms and legs to 40, and his chakra control was at high tuning for what he could feel when he did water walking, finding it easier to do every time he tried it. Now on a Kyuubi, their relationship was a love-hate one. When Naruto first met him by an hour of meditating, due to Shinigami's new orders, he saw that his mind was like a prison, iron doors containing various memories that he didn't care for at the moments, and went straight towards Kyuubi's cell. And it was just like that, a giant prison cell with iron bars and the kanji symbol for seal on the door. Now Naruto didn't know what to expect from the nine-tailed fox. Was he going to be friendly, sorry, or evil as hell? Well, he found out when he almost got a giant claw on his forehead, inciting a bundle of rage in the back of his mind from an unknown source. Little to say, the two got into an argument until Shinigami became the mediator by shutting them up with his killing intent. From then on, the two, while not exactly buddies, grudgingly accepted and helped each other. Naruto by imagining up a giant rabbit for the fox to devour from time to time, and Kyuubi by giving him chakra when he needed it, and sending him information about the Uchiha clan. The information was disturbing to say the least. He learned that the Uchiha clan was descended from the elder of the two boys entrusted by the Sage of the Six Paths with the power and will of the way of the ninja. The elder believed that might would bring peace. The sage chose the younger as more fitting to be his successor, causing the elder to become vengeful to him. From a younger boy descended the Senju clan, who would be the eternal rivals of the Uchiha clan. Before the founding of the ninja villages, the Uchiha were one of the many mercenary clans for hire. Because of their Sharingan, the Uchiha clan came to be known as one of the two strongest clans, the second being the Senju clan. That was when he learned that his ancestor, or at the very least a distant great-uncle, Madara Uchiha, who was undoubtedly the most powerful Uchiha at the time, was particularly powerful, and upon attaining the Mangekyo Sharingan, he took control of the clan. Under his leadership, the Uchiha grew stronger, conquering whatever clans they came upon, such that, whenever the Uchiha clan was hired for a job, the opposing side would hire the Senju clan. To bring an end to the constant fighting, the leader of the Senju clan, Hashirama Senju, approached the Uchiha with an offering of peace. Although Madara never wanted peace with the Senju, the rest of the Uchiha wanted to end the fighting, and Madara had no choice but to go along with their decision. The Senju, the Uchiha, and all the clans they had conquered came together to form the village of Konohagakure. Against Madara's wishes, the villagers selected Hashirama as the village's Shodaime Hokage. Madara feared that Hashirama would oppress the Uchiha and tried to rally support for challenging his leadership, rather than help him. However, the Uchiha turned their backs on him, believing his only motives were due to pride and the desire for more power. Abandoned by his clan, Madara left the village, later returning in order to challenge Hashirama in battle. They fought at the site that would someday be called the Valley of the End, where although Madara called upon Kyuubi, he was defeated but apparently did not die. Naruto, surprised by the information, asked how to beat a man like that, and wondered how he could gain the Mangekyo Sharingan, which resulted in his getting hit upside the head by Shinigami. Naruto, don't get power hungry. The Mangekyo Sharingan is the next level of the Sharingan that curses you rather than blesses you. Curse me? Mind explaining, Shinigami? Naruto asked, still getting used to being smart and having a clan to learn about. Alright, you're still getting used to all this stuff. You see, it has 3 special abilities. One is named Tsukuyami. This jutsu is one of the most powerful Genjutsu in existence. It's named after the goddess of the moon. This jutsu is generated by the left Manjikyu eye. This highly advanced technique cannot be used extensively because of the toll it places on the user. To utilize the illusion, the clan member will look into the eyes of his opponent and cast a Genjutsu spell on them. The illusion takes place in the mind of the one affected, while under the jutsu the victim is at the total mercy of the user. The user has full control over space and time in the jutsu, and can place the one affected through any hell they desire for any length desired. The technique itself only lasts for but a second in reality, but the one affected could have lasted through several days of torture. It is said only a natural-born member of the Uchiha clan can overcome the illusion. To counter the technique, however, Manjikyu is not required. A highly trained, normal Sharingan user can break the illusion, causing the Manjikyu user to experience additional weakness from using it. While the illusion is never the same twice, some elements always remain. The first and foremost similarity is the red moon, which hangs in the sky of each illusion. The moon, in turn, casts a red light throughout the illusion, giving the background a blood-red appearance, while the figures within the illusion are solid black with white outlines. The next one is the Amaterasu. This has the same qualities as the Darkness Flame. You see, this legendary jutsu is unique to the Uchiha clan, named after the goddess of the sun. This is a ninjutsu technique which uses the Manjikyu form of the Sharingan eye to create a powerful black fire. This jutsu is generated by the right Manjikyu eye. It has been said that anything within the Manjikyu's vision will burn to ash if consumed by the fire. The fire itself is said to burn for 7 days and 7 nights. Because of the amount of chakra needed to use the technique, it can only be used on a very limited basis daily. Though it is regarded as the strongest of Manjikyu's physical attacks, usage of the ability will degrade the eye further and lead the user to blindness. And the last one is Susu, named after the god of the sea and storms, is a technique which uses the Manjikyu form of the Sharingan eye to create a sword-wielding spectral form which will surround the user. This jutsu is generated by both Mangekyo eyes. Susanoo will first form around the user as a skeleton. This skeletal form will then generate muscle and armor for battle and become unique to how its user fights. Like other Mangekyo techniques, usage of Susanoo will damage the eyes and health of the user. However, Susanoo varies between users depending on the pureness of their souls. Shinigami explained to his avatar of death, "There are more, but unless you want to go blind, I feel it is moot telling you for now." Thanks, and while I'll admit there are severe drawbacks, these techniques sound very powerful and very badass. But that doesn't explain how you get it. I mean, if I'm going to beat Madara, I need to know the ins and outs on how to beat him. Naruto explained to Shinigami, using his assignment as an excuse to know more about his Kekkai Genkai. And if this guy is like over 100 years old from what you told me, then he has learned a thing or two to keep himself alive by copying and mastering thousands of jutsus. I'll give you credit of thinking that through, but I don't think you can handle the truth with this information. I'm ready for anything. I need to know anything about this guy if I'm going to beat him," Naruto said determinedly, punching his left hand into his open right palm to show he was serious. Sighing, Shinigami knew he had to tell him the Uchiha clan's terrible secret of their cursed bloodline. Not because Naruto asked, but because it was necessary for him to learn about his enemy in order to kill him. "Naruto, from what I've seen, there is only one way to achieve the Mangekyo Sharingan. To acquire the Mangekyo Sharingan, someone close to a Sharingan user must die, and the emotion of the loss is responsible for its unlocking. To expedite this occurrence, most Uchiha throughout history have killed their closest friends or family members in order to meet this criteria." To say that Naruto was surprised was like saying he learned the secret of immortality, but it came with a steep price. His eyes nearly popped out his head. He felt sick to his stomach learning this. But a little voice in the back of his head told him it wasn't over yet. "Yeah, you should be feeling sick, but this isn't over yet, for there is one last and final level of the Sharingan. This final level is called the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Madara achieved this by taking his brother's eyes, which gave him unimaginable power and made him immortal or close to it," Shinigami said, finishing up his lecture about the Uchiha clan. Naruto said nothing for a long while. After all, how could he? It's not every day you learn that your clan did something this horrific. Take the rest of the day off and think this through. Take a walk and contact me once you're ready to talk. The god of death continued before vanishing from the mortal plane. For many minutes, the black-streaked blonde tried to think on this matter, but he could not, and was tempted to tear his eyes out to free himself from his clan's curse. But it wouldn't matter if he did that or not. The Uchiha blood ran through his veins and would never go away. He had to think this over. Alone. Taking Shinigami's advice, he took off from his training area, but not before dispelling his clones, gaining their memories and experience. That was not a good idea, because it gave him a headache soon after, like it always did, causing him to stumble into a nearby tree. The top of his head scraped against the bark, causing a good amount of blood to seep out of the fresh wound, staining a part of his blonde hair crimson. He laid there under the shady tree, thinking something that now hated doing. After 10 minutes, his headache went away, and the cut on his head was already healed within the first minute. Sighing tiredly, he pushed himself to his feet and continued walking aimlessly in any direction he saw fit in his hazy mind. After hours of wandering, it was almost dark, and Naruto found himself looking at a sight he never thought he would see. The area he quite literally stumbled into showed the beautiful rays of light from the sun lowering itself behind the hills he saw earlier when he was fleeing from Tezuna's home, and its descending light reflected off the wavy waters of Wave Country was absolutely breathtaking. This scene of absolute serenity calmed his conflicted mind. But the peaceful sight was shattered by a screeching noise. A fox's, to be exact. Without thinking for once, since Shinigami fixed him, Naruto ran off to find the sound. He reached the source of the sound a minute later. Upon seeing the sight, he hid behind some bushes, and his blood boiled with rage, seeing two men standing over a mutilated fox family, with one laughing at the sight of this bountiful harvest, or what he said it was. Taking a peek through the bush, he took a good look at them. One was around 6'2", and much healthier looking than his companion, if the healthy shade of skin and muscle definition were any indication. Naruto couldn't his face because of a large breathing device covered most of it. The only this he could see were menacing green eyes. He wore what looked like a light purple Jonin flak vest with a what used to be white long-sleeve shirt. He wore light blue shinobi-styled pants with sandals to match, and the only visible weapon he could see was an umbrella strapped to the back of his flak vest. According to the scratched-out rain symbol on his breathing device on his forehead, showing he was a missing ninja like Zabuza. The second one was 5'9" in height and was pale and skinny, looking like he hadn't eaten in months. He looked to be a teenager around the age of 19, with shaggy neck-length brown hair and coal brown eyes. He wore black cargo pants, black sandals, a black long-sleeve shirt that was missing its right sleeve, and what looked like a brown Chunin flak vest with a katana strapped to the back of his flak vest. Naruto couldn't see any Hitayate on him, but from the way he was dressed indicated him to be a stone Chunin, and if he was in the company with a missing Rain Ninja, then it showed that he too was a missing Nin. That was some good hunting, wasn't it, Ishikawa? The Rain Ninja laughed out. It was boring in my opinion, Muka. It didn't stand a chance. The stone ninja named Ishikawa yawned out boredly. Bah, it doesn't matter. We'll skin them, cook up the meat to fatten you up, and sell these pelts after we find this Gado person, the missing Nin named Muka exclaimed. However, after his boasting, he heard a slight rustling and stomped over to a nearby bush. Ripping it out of the ground, it revealed two kids, barely 6 months old. Well, look what we have here. Muka laughed as he beckoned his partner over. Sighing boredly, Ishikawa walked over to his unlikely partner in crime. While Scrawny, the ex-stone Chunin, looked at the kits with a small amount of caution, the smaller-looking of the two, probably a female in his opinion, was cowering behind the other one. The one in front was definitely a fighter, if his fiery brown eyes were any indication. Muka, on the other hand, only grinned and took out a kunai knife from a pouch strapped at the back of his belt. He slowly and menacingly inched towards them, ready to slit their throats. The kid in front of his sister wouldn't allow it. Snarling, he leaped at the missing Rain Ninja. Opening his small jaw, he bit down hard on Muka's hand. While his teeth were small, they were unnaturally sharp. One of the few things he prided himself on. As the coppery taste of Muka's blood filled his mouth, the man screamed, not expecting an attack. The Rain Ninja, meanwhile, was flailing around, trying to get the fox kid off his unoccupied hand, but the sound of tearing flesh was greeted for his efforts. Naruto, meanwhile, watched this all in fascination, amazed that something so little would stand up to overwhelming odds. Unknown to him, Kyuubi watched the struggle, proud to see that his kin was fighting the good fight. But he was also enraged to see the piled bodies of an entire family of Kitsune were slaughtered. If he knew his stupid Ningen container, then these two would not make it out of this forest alive. Growling angrily, Muka swiped his kunai at the kit, catching him in the face. The sharp blade cut deeply into the kit's face, causing him to yelp out in pain and let go of his hand. The kit hit the ground in front of the other one with a thud. He growled angrily and shakily rose to its feet, glaring hatefully at the missing Nin. Muka roared in absolute rage at the beast and brought his kunai down onto the fox kit. The kit didn't flinch as his bloody crimson gaze showed the kunai's decent. Naruto, on the other hand, couldn't stand on the sideline anymore. He didn't like Kyuubi, but that wasn't going to stop him from saving the two innocent kits. Cursing that he didn't have any weapons on him. How could he? He was dead, after all. So he quickly looked at the ground and found the sharpest rock he could find. Grabbing it in his right hand, his throwing hand, he quickly aimed and threw it at Muka. Now he was only 6 or 7 feet from the two, and he suppressed his chakra as good as he could in order not to be detected. When he threw the sharp rock, he expected the rock to hit his flak jacket and distract him. He didn't even expect the rock to hit at all. But instead, the rock hit its mark. Literally, the sharp end of the rock pierced him in his right eye and burrowed into his brain, killing him instantly. What the hell just happened? Ishikawa asked himself as he saw his partner's body fall to the ground. That would be me. A voice echoed through the area. Instead of freaking out, Ishikawa reached behind his back and took out a kunai knife from a pouch strapped at the back of his belt. He then chucked it in the direction where he heard the voice, enacting a yelping noise. He expected someone to come out, but this isn't what he imagined who would come out. A spiky-haired black/crimson streak blonde with piercing blue eyes came out of the bushes. He was wearing, out of all things, a jumpsuit, a freaking orange jumpsuit. He saw there was a large blood-stained hole in the front of his black shirt, exposing his chest, orange pants that looked ready to give any second, and extremely worn-out blue open-toed, shinobi-styled sandals. All in all, he felt that this guy needed a serious ass-kicking. Or he could just kill him. Either way, that jumpsuit had to go. However, he narrowed his eyes, seeing a leaf hitate proudly displayed on his forehead. "A leaf shinobi, my lucky day," Ishikawa said, grinning savagely as he unsheathed his katana. Naruto narrowed his eyes at that look. After all, he had to live with it for nearly 13 years. But his time, it wasn't because of Kyuubi, it was because of his status as a leaf ninja. Not waiting for opponent to ready himself, Ishikawa leaped at Naruto, his sword raised above his head, intent to bring it down on the multicolored blonde's head. Naruto raised his right hand and blocked it with his opponent's kunai. The resounding clang echoed throughout the area as the two struggled for dominance. Ishikawa glared hatefully at the leaf ninja before he kicked him squarely in the stomach. As Naruto flew back, the ex-Nin jumped back a few feet away. Stabbing his katana into the ground and brought his hands up in front of him, he quickly bit his right thumb, drawing blood, and went through 5 distinctive hand seals and slammed his right hand on the ground. "Summoning jutsu," he called out as kanji symbols spread out from his palm. A giant cloud of smoke engulfed the area, making Naruto's eyes widen. He had a good reason to, because the distinctive buzzing greeted him not even a second later. In front of Ishikawa were literally hundreds of bees. "How do you like my pet's leaf scum? Aren't they just beautiful?" Ishikawa asked mockingly, seeing his opponent's eyes widen in fear. "Yeah, if you like getting stingers up your ass," Naruto retorted, trying to put up a brave front. "Well, if that's what you want." With a silent command, Ishikawa sent half his bees out to attack him. Naruto was ready, though. Bringing up his kunai knife, he swiped at the bees. He didn't expect the first one he hit to explode in a golden shower, but it didn't seem threatening, so he kept swiping at the bees. With each one he injured or destroyed, it always hit him with this strange golden substance. As one more came in, he found that he couldn't move his arm, or any part of his body for that matter. "What have you done to me?" Naruto demanded as he desperately struggled to free himself. "My honeybee jutsu immobilized you, you little twit. With every bee destroyed or wounded, it unleashes this sticky honey to immobilize my targets. Weren't you taught this at all?" Ishikawa asked as he willed the surviving bees to his side. "Hell no, I was always kicked out of class. Plus, whatever history classes I was in never mentioned whoever you are," Naruto replied as he continued to struggle in him honey prison. A tick mark appeared above Ishikawa's right eyebrow when he heard that. It was common knowledge in Stone Country, if not the shinobi world, that the Kamizuru clan attempted to lead an invasion force into Konoha during the Third Great Shinobi War, only to be repelled and largely killed by the more experienced Aburame clan. They were ostracized for their failure, when it was due to faulty intelligence that nearly drove his clan into extinction, and that Tsuchikage, despite being part of the clan, swept it under the rug. That had burned him for many years until he defected in order to pursue his secret goal. "Too bad, it could have saved your life," Ishikawa said, bringing his arms in front of him. "I am Ishikawa Kamizu, the Killer Hornet. Tell Yami I sent you." "Bee bomb jutsu." His scream commanded the remaining bees forward into the immobile, multicolored blonde. Just like the technique suggested, when the bees made contact with Naruto's body, they exploded, sending showers of smoke and dirt into the air. The ex-Nin sighed in relief, knowing the fight was over. However, a faint whistling sound alarmed him. He quickly brought his katana up to deflect the kunai, aimed for his heart, looking to where it came from. As the smoke cleared, he saw that Naruto was still standing, but he was shaking real badly. Blood covered multiple areas on his now exposed torso, especially the entire left side of his face, and he was panting in absolute pain. The only bright side to seeing him actually standing was that his hideous jumpsuit was now destroyed, or at least a different color now. However, it infuriated him seeing this cockroach was still alive, and he knew that the only way to get rid of them was to cut their heads off. "Ah, well, what do you know, you're still alive?" Ishikawa said, casually walking over with his sword dragging through the topsoil of the ground. I can do this all day, Ishikawa. Kamizura, bring it on. Naruto managed to cough out. Ishikawa knew he was lying, but while he hated to admit it, this person actually gained his respect, if only a little. So he decided for the sake of any honor this kid had he would end this quick. Well, kid, it was an amusing fight, but I'm afraid that your life must end here. Your only mistake was not killing me first, because I was far better than Muka, he said as he got in front of him, and got ready to bring his sword down on Naruto, who was too weak to move. However, Naruto was thinking differently. He knew he was too weak to put up any form of defense. I can't let him kill me. I won't let this be the end. I still have so many things to do. Nothing else matters. I have to live. I need to live. I must live. He desperately thought before he used the rest of his willpower to lift his arms up to his chest area, like he was trying to hold something. Ishikawa brought his blade down to end Naruto's life. He stopped. He coughed up blood. He looked down to see his sword piercing his chest. Naruto was thrown for a loop as he saw his would-be killer impaled on a sword that appeared in his hands. He unconsciously activated his improved Sharingan eyes, drawing a surprised, painful gasp from the ex-stone Chunin. So, I fought against a survivor from that clan. The dying man coughed out, surprising. Naruto didn't know how his opponent could stay so calm when a blade was impaled through his heart. To say he was freaking out was like saying that Sakura would rather nail Choji than Sasuke. That would honestly scare the shit out of him, and anyone else who found out. Ishikawa saw his lifeblood run down the blade and over the guard onto Naruto's hands. He saw his frightened face, unfitting for a Uchiha from what he heard. As he stared into the face of his killer, he saw not a cold-blooded murderer that various stone shinobi always told him, but a frightened child. It was heartbreaking because it reminded him of his sister when she was younger. He knew he was going to die soon, so before his life was taken by the Shinigami, he said these words, not knowing they would have a major effect on the young man before him. Kid, wipe that look off your face. It's unfitting for a shinobi. He coughed out, causing some of his blood to land on Naruto's face, effectively wiping that shocked look off his face. I've accepted my fate. I'll just become a memory, and life will go on. You're going to live to fight another day and do this again, either to protect your loved ones, your village, or yourself. It is your job, but you don't have to enjoy it. He coughed out again and slid himself down the sword until he came face to face with the one holding it. I can feel that you're going to do great things in your life. Don't look back to the past and feel regret for what you've done. Look to it and remember those that were lost, your happy memories, and learn from past mistakes. And after reminiscing for that brief minute, look towards the future for a brighter tomorrow, a future that you create with your own two hands. He continued as he felt his life slipping away. But before I die, may I know your name, so I can tell your tale wherever I may go. After absorbing Ishikawa's speech, Naruto answered his last request before he went to the Shinigami. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, the first Kurashigan, Dark Eye user, he said, his eyes copying his victim's face as his soul started leaving his body. Naruto of the Kurashigan. He sounds pretty badass. Ishikawa whispered his last words. His grip finally loosened, dropping his sword onto the ground, and his eyes closed forever. Naruto just stood there for many minutes, too shocked to do anything, until finally he collapsed backwards. Ishikawa's body fell in front of him, still impaled on the blade. He made a choking noise before he puked his guts out. This was his first face-to-face kill. Yes, he killed some drunk civilian, but the man brought it on himself for overreacting when he hit him with a rusty lead pipe. The idiot slipped in a puddle and split his head open on the brick wall. Muko was pure luck and from a distance. But Ishikawa was much different. He suffered through agonizing pain, and he looked into his eyes as the life left him. It was a sight he would never forget, because his damn eyes burned it into him memory. He crawled over to the nearest tree and rested under the shade it provided. He sat under it for what seemed like an eternity, thinking, wondering, knowing something that shouldn't be on a preteen's mind. He closed his eyes to rest, hoping this was just a bad dream. But he felt something brush against his hand that forced him to open his normal-colored eyes. It was the smallest of the two kits brushing against right hand. The multicolored blonde looked up to see the injured one trying to pull the sword out of Ishikawa's chest. You did good, Ninjan. Kyubi's voice echoed in his head. I don't feel the same way, Fox, Naruto responded mentally, just so he didn't scare the kids off. While your last kill was rather odd, almost dash. Divine, if you might say, Shinigami interrupted the great Fox. You put the sword in my hands, Naruto asked, confused as he absent-mindedly pet the kit, causing it to slightly purr. I was supposed to give it to you earlier, but the blacksmith that created it kept having disputes, making it a little late in my opinion. The god of death replied irritably, and this was the unfortunate truth. The two were master sword makers, but they hated each other more than the villagers hated Naruto. It was just good timing that he delivered it before Naruto's life came to an end once again. Well, now that your enemies are dead, and now I'm healing you from your injuries, I just got to ask you one thing. Just what the hell did you think you were doing? You nearly got US killed, you stupid ass. Kyuubi roared at his vessel. Naruto actually jumped a little, making him bleed out a tiny bit. But he wasn't going to sit by and get yelled at by a giant fox pelt. Shut up, you hairy ass furball. I did what I had to do, protect your kind. He mentally screamed back at him. You could have used the Shadow Clone Jutsu to flank him in a pincer maneuver and got the two to safety. You should not have engaged an obviously better skilled opponent in a head-on fight. Just look at your condition. If it wasn't for me, you would be dead. I worked my ass off all week trying to mold your body into perfect condition, and you almost ruined it in the span of 10 minutes. I thought you shinobi were supposed to think before they act. I see you have yet to grasp that concept. Kyuubi growled out. That was a low blow, and Kyuubi knew it. But sometimes it was tough love, or in his case, happily stating the obvious, that was needed to get Naruto's act together. Sure, he may have had some actual decent training, but the simple fact of the matter is his mind was still trying to adapt to his new life. Well, what do you suppose I do? Well, I suggest you learn more jutsu. Demand that stupid god to actually teach you something other than chakra exercises. Because from what you've just witnessed, there are people out there that will not hesitate to kill you. And so you must be prepared. Both Shinigami and I will train you in strategy, so you won't be so stupid next time. And for God's sake, change your clothes and take a fucking bath. Don't you call me a stupid god, you damn fox. I could easily wipe the floor with you. Shinigami screamed at the nine-tailed beast. I can call you anything I want because I'm in here and you can't do shit about it. Kyuubi replied, and Naruto could have sworn he saw the giant fox do a chibi, I won and you lost dance in his head. But apparently Shinigami threw a picture of Guy in a bright pink Speedo into the beast's mind, making him roar out in mental agony, and making the god of death laugh at his misfortune. While all this was happening, Naruto, meanwhile, was petting the female Kit resting on his lap. The male Kit finished pulling his katana out of Ishikawa's chest and brought it over to his right side, and then lay by his leg near his sister. It didn't take a genius to tell this blade was special. From what he could see past the blood, the blade itself was black with a silver, almost white edge. The guard resembled a rectangular tsuba with small sharp edges on each corner, and looked like it was split in half, with one side being black and the other white. The white side showing an angel and the black side showing a devil. And the parts of the hilt showing was white with black thread covering it. However, at the ending on the hilt was a skull that looked like it was made of bone. What's more was that there was a crimson tassel wrapped around the bottom of the jaw with a small hourglass with black sand inside the glass on the end of it. However, it wasn't the look of the sword, but the feel of it. It felt evil, bloodthirsty, and malicious, and yet it felt good, peaceful, and soothing. He patiently waited for the two kids to fall asleep. He spoke to the two powerful entities. Shinigami, why does this katana feel good and evil at the same time? That question caused the two to stop their arguing/torturing each other. They stared at the healing multicolored blonde as he looked at the sword he killed his opponent with. That Naruto is a sword created by priest Goro Masamune and Sengo Muramasa, two famous master swordsmiths who lived long ago. Tell me, are you familiar with the legends of Masamune and Muramasa? Shinigami asked, even though he already knew the answer. No, I'm afraid I don't. Naruto answered him. A legend tells of a test where Muramasa challenged his master, Masamune, to see who could make a finer sword. They both worked tirelessly, and eventually, when both swords were finished, they decided to test the results. The contest was for each to suspend the blades in a small creek with the cutting edge facing the current. Muramesa's sword, the Juchi Yasumu, 10,000 Cold Nights, cut everything that passed its way. Fish, leaves floating down the river, the very air which blew on it. Highly impressed with his pupil's work, Masamune lowered his sword, the Aokite, tender hands, into the current and waited patiently. Not a leaf was cut. The fish swam right up to it, and the air hissed as it gently blew by the blade. After a while, Muramesa began to scoff at his master for his apparent lack of skill in the making of his sword. Smiling to himself, Masamune pulled up his sword, dried it, and sheathed it. All the while, Muramesa was heckling him for his sword's inability to cut anything. A monk, who had been watching the whole ordeal, walked over and bowed low to the two swordmasters. He then began to explain what he had seen. The first of the swords was by all accounts a fine sword. However, it is a bloodthirsty, evil blade, as it does not discriminate as to who or what it will cut. It may just as well be cutting down butterflies as severing heads. The second was by far the finer of the two, as it does not needlessly cut that which is innocent and undeserving. That is what he said. Shinigami explained to his avatar. Why? Naruto asked as he scratched his head in confusion. Maybe I can explain this better than the old fossil. Kyubi added his 2 cents, drawing a growl from the god of death. Muramesa was a most skillful swordsmith, but he had a violent and ill-balanced mind verging on madness that was supposed to have passed into his blades. They were popularly believed to hunger for blood and to impel their warrior to commit murder or suicide. It is said that a Muramesa blade has to draw blood before it can be returned to its scabbard, even to the point of forcing its wielder to wound himself or commit suicide. Thus, it is thought of as a demonic cursed blade that creates bloodlust in those who wield it. But Masamune, while he had title as priest, he only earned it because his blades were pure and shed the blood of the guilty and not the innocent, thus deeming them holy swords in comparison to Muramesa's demon blades. Looking at the bloody sword, our hero asked, "So what does it make this sword?" "This sword is neutral. You see, the story I told you is just that, a story. The two were real, but lived nearly 100 years apart. I had this idea for a few 100,000 years, and you were responsible for it to come in fruition. As my first avatar, you would need a weapon, the perfect weapon, and trust me, the scythe is too cliché and boring in my opinion. So I pulled these two out of heaven and hell respectfully and commanded them to create this blade." Let me guess, there were complications? Naruto deadpanned a now sweating dropping Shinigami. Yes, they kept fighting how it should be made, slowing the process to a snail's pace. I finally threatened to eat them if they didn't finish it by the end of the week. End of the week? It takes months, sometimes an entire year, to create a sword. Kyubi protested that ridiculous notion. In limbo, time ceases to exist. You could be in there for a few hours, and a few days could have gone by. It took a freaking week equivalent of 7 years because of this sword's design, and then learning how to forge this sword because of its special abilities. Special abilities? Naruto questioned the god. I had them forge it with chakra steel, so you could use your nature affinities and send the souls to of anyone you kill, regardless of how you do it, to heaven or hell. In order to do this, I embedded a little of my judging powers into this sword that will judge any earthbound or newly deceased spirits wherever you go. Shinigami answered his avatar's question, feeling quite smug that he created one of the best weapons in existence. Then what the hell is the skull and hourglass for Ghost Boy? Kyubi growled out, getting annoyed to the point that he could see the god's smug expression on his fanged face. Well, Mr. Fuzzy Pants, the skull is to store medicine to heal any cuts the kid may get. Granted, I didn't supply him with it. He'll learn about various herbs in time. And the hourglass is just a cool ornament that he could scare his opponents with, saying, "Your time is up once the sand runs out." It'll be fucking awesome. The god of death exclaimed, causing the two to sweat drop, wondering if he was on drugs, insane, or just plain stupid. Picking up the blade with his right hand, he rose it as far as his arm could reach above him. The remaining light that remained from today shined off to the edge of the blade. As the sun finally descended over the hill, Naruto whispered, "I'll name you Hin and Ryoku, powers of discrimination," before he fell asleep as the sword fell right next to him. Shinigami overlooked the scene and couldn't help but smile. The boy was at peace after many conflicting thoughts ravaged him today. He wouldn't disturb the boy. No man tonight. He would allow him to sleep and fully heal. Because tomorrow he would take a giant leap in his training to make him better than ever that Naruto's month's worth of training was over. As he sheathed Hinryoku in Ishikawa's katana scabbard, he reflected what he did over his last week in his training area. When he first woke up, he noticed the two kids by, or on him, and it hit him on what happened the other day. The bodies of the Kitsune family, Muka, and Ishikawa greeted him. He remembered what happened and immediately felt sick. But before he could even dry heave the deceased Stone Chunin's, speech rang through his head, and his eyes steeled in resolve. He was going to look towards the future and craft it with his own two hands. After he gently took the female kid off his lap, he gently placed her by her brother and proceeded to clean himself in a river 60 feet away from the scene. When he returned, he got orders from Shinigami to raid the bodies inside and out. That sickened him for obvious reasons, but after a little persuasive/threatening chat from the god of death, he reluctantly dug and committed the deed that killed a good part of his innocence. During his outer search, he found 3 kunai, including the one in his fight, 7 shuriken with 8 blades instead of 4, 3 exploding tags, a sealing scroll, some medical gauze along with disinfectant, and the newest edition of the bingo book showing the rogue shinobi of every nation an expensive book if he thought to himself. Opening the book, he saw that Ishikawa was an A-rank missing Chunin-level ninja who stole the Shodan Tsuchikige's bracers, a treasured item for the Kamizuru clan. Why he did it, he honestly didn't know, and Ishikawa obviously couldn't tell him. However, Muka was a B-rank missing Genin-level ninja. Apparently, he killed his sensei and his 2 15-year-old teammates while they were sleeping and stole the Jonit's vest. And get this, he was 35, which was very pathetic in his opinion. Speaking of Muka, when he searched through his corpse, he only found 5 kunai, some ninja wire, a blank scroll, and a low-level exploding tag. No much in his opinion, but they added to the things he needed. Then came the gruesome part, cutting open the bodies. With help from a recently deceased Mist Hunter ninja that Shinigami persuaded to help him in order to send him to the rightful place for his soul. He followed step-by-step instructions and learned the secrets from their bodies. Due to the lack of scalpel, Naruto used one of the kunais he swiped and started dissecting them. The first target was Muka. After taking his clothing off, the black-streaked blonde started cutting into his chest. He then proceeded to remove his heart, forcing some of his chakra into it. He tried to feel any sort of difference in it. Like Kakashi once said, missing ninja contained their village's secrets. He was hoping to feel some sort of herbs or drugs within it, but unfortunately there was nothing and discarded it to the side. For the next hour, he repeated the process with his other organs, from the lungs all the way to the kidneys. It proved fruitless, however. But then he placed his hand onto the man's head. He forced his chakra into his hand and slowly extracted the information he desired. He was no Yamanaka or professional hunter nin, but he got what he wanted after another hour. To his sheer disappointment, even in death, Muka just showed how pathetic he was. The man only knew 3 C-rank water jutsus, and one that was completely useless to him. But they were enough for Naruto and wrote them down in the blank scroll. Ishikawa was a different story. Due to him actually respecting the man, he prolonged the man's dissection for a few hours until he was ready. He didn't mess with his body due to the fact that he was just unwilling to mutilate him. So instead, he pulled the information from his brain. However, unlike Muka's brain scan, as he liked to call it for his sake, the deceased Stone Chunin of the Kamizuru clan knew a lot about his clan arts. That was completely useless to him, since the man didn't have the beast summoning contract on his person, nor was he even from that clan to that matter. While they were unfortunately useless to him, he found a gold mine when looked at just as that he could actually use. And let's just say the scroll Muka had was filled up with a total of 14 jutsu. That wasn't all. He learned a good amount of information about Iwa's various squads like the Explosion Corps, and a few other things as well. After the gruesome deed was done, he buried the bodies in the woods. While their bounties were impressive, he didn't care about them. He just wanted to pay them their last respects and return them to the earth. He didn't give a shit about the coward Muka, because after he dug their graves, using just his bare hands, he just unceremoniously threw what was left of him into the grave. But he gently placed Ishikawa's corpse into the ground. He placed his katana, without the scabbard which was just the right size to fit Ryoka's blade, on top of him and wrapped his hands on the hilt, giving him the appearance of a true warrior who fell honorably in battle. After saying a quick prayer for the deceased stone Chunin, he piled the dirt on their corpses and placed Muka's open umbrella over it to mark it as his grave site. Afterwards, he dug a massive grave for the Fox family after he saw the two, now orphaned kits staring at their corpses. He spent the rest of the day just doing minimal exercises and tending the male kit's wound with what he stole from Muka's body. The next few days, however, picked up as he threw himself into his training. He increased his running laps to 25 and added one more lap every day, steadily becoming faster. For an intense physical challenge, he even swam upstream to increase his endurance, and that was for his physical exercises. For his chakra exercises, he managed to create 10 shadow clones, with Shinigami's permission, of course, to increase his control. Feeling creative, he ordered his clones to do the tree walking exercise, while balancing a leaf on their foreheads with chakra. After he mastered that exercise, he ordered them to do the water walking exercise, while balancing 2 kunais on their palms with the sharp end facing down. That exercise wasn't easy with a supply of 8 kunai, and they kept disappearing due to slight mistakes on his part. But with each failure, he learned after trying it the next day. Then came his sword training. At first, he was clumsy and nearly decapitated himself once trying to do some fancy move. But in the next few days, he just practiced katas, letting it become an extension of his body. He knew it wasn't good enough. If he wanted to advance in his Kenjutsu training, he would have to get a teacher, one that didn't hate him. Shinigami told him he could use his shadow clones to progress faster. But Naruto told him that that would be cheating. The katana was forged for him and him alone. It would have been a disgrace to their souls for him to take the easy way out for something that he felt that he needed to do himself. He could have sworn he saw the ghostly images of Muramasa and Masamune, nodding and giving the thumbs up before looking at each other, and then started beating the living or unliving hell out of each other. Truly weird. Then came his Juganai. This happened clearly by accident. He slipped during his kata moves when he first started his Kenjutsu training and banged his head on a tree. The force of the impact knocked his Hitate off his forehead, revealing his Juganai. He heard what sounded like laughing and turned his head to see the male kit rolling around on the grass laughing his furry ass off. He, of course, told him to stop it, which the kit replied, "Make me." Mentally. That was when he figured out that the Juganai granted him mental powers and asked Shinigami why he didn't tell him. The god of death merely replied that he wasn't going to hold his hand all the time, nor was he going to hand him everything on a silver platter. He would help him if he was truly stuck on something, needed some advice, or wanted to learn a technique. He would gladly help. But he was on his own for everything else. Back to the subject, whenever he wasn't practicing his Kenjutsu or doing physical exercises, he worked on mastering his third eye. The process was grueling and caused him many headaches in the long run. Apparently, the Juganai was sentient and demanded respect, and that conflicted with Naruto's "I'll give you respect when you earn it" attitude. So in the long run, Naruto only was able to get the basics of mind reading one of its powers, and that was only to the kits. And this is where we find a black-streaked blonde now, looking towards Tazuna's bridge. "Ready, Ichigo? Benaheim?" Naruto asked the 2 fox kits on his shoulders. The 2 only nodded. Putting on his mask Shinigami presented to him a few days earlier, Naruto pumped some chakra into his legs and leaped away from the forest, not once looking back where the old Naruto Uzumaki died. With Team 7 and company, everyone gathered at the bridge was in a somber mood. Today was the day Team 7 and Zabuza, along with his adoptive daughter, departed. Minus one member. "I guess this is where we depart," an almost completely healed Kakashi announced, for once not reading his perverted book. This was a serious matter, because in less than a day, he would have to tell the Hokage in person that Naruto was dead. He owed the blonde that much at least. "Yeah, I guess it is," Tazuna replied, standing under the sign titled The Great Naruto Bridge. "I guess we'll see you," Zabuza said sadly. "Yet don't be strangers," Tsunami quietly whispered with her hand on Inari's shoulder, who was on the verge of a tearful breakdown. "Don't worry, we'll be back," to see him again. Sasuke whispered out the last part, remembering the day they buried what remained of his former teammate. The group turned their backs to get back to the village, because they knew that this would be the last experience they would have in this country ever again. And now what is everyone so depressed about? You all act as if someone died. A rough voice rang out, causing everyone to the source of it. Standing on top of the sign was an imposing figure as tall as Sasuke. While the sun blocked his head, they could clearly see that covering his dirty, tanned, muscular, and apparently still healing skin was a dirty and torn black long-sleeved shirt that was missing its right sleeve, torn and dirty black cargo pants, and black open-toed, shinobi-styled sandals with white bandages that wrapped his heels and extended into his pants with what looked like 2 ankle bands on each leg poking out from under the torn bottom of his pants. From what they could see behind him were 2 brown shuriken pouches attached to the back of his waist, and his exposed forearm, and probably under his sleeve were a pair of what looked like black lightweight guards that lead to claw-like fingernails on his hands. Kakashi narrowed his eyes, seeing the clothing a stone ninja. Everyone prepared to pull out any kind of weapon. The figure spoke again. Now. There's no need to attack me. With that said, he hopped down onto the ground in front of everyone. What they saw made them stop dead in their tracks. The figure had black streaked blonde hair, wearing a mask that had black razor-sharp pointed horns, black metallic eyes and teeth, and the expression all exhibit the full wrath, anger, and resentment on its face. The coloring on the face was crimson, signifying the full wrath, resentment, and anger of this mask. This was a Hanya mask, a mask that basically showed everyone not to fuck with them. Kakashi once saw one of these masks in the Third Great Shinobi War worn by a stone shinobi that killed over 500 Leaf Shinobi at Jounin level before he was taken down by the Yellow Flash himself. And even then, the future Yondaime Hokage had a hard time with the beast of a man that day. But what's more was that he had 2 forearm-sized fox kits on his broad shoulders. On the right was a crimson-colored fox with fiery brown eyes, a wicked scar going diagonally down from his right ear to his left cheek. While on his left shoulder was a smaller fox with brown eyes and light orange coat rather than crimson. But the revealing thing was the katana on his belt. From what they could see from the hilt was white with black thread covering it, and on the end of it was a skull that looked like it was made of bone. Along the bottom of the skull was a crimson tassel wrapped around the bottom of the jaw with a small hourglass with black sand inside the glass on the end of it that disturbingly reminded Kakashi of a hangman's noose. The last thing they all noticed on the belt was a beat-up Leaf Hittite proudly displayed to them. "Who are you?" Kakashi demanded, weary and confused by this stranger. The figure put one of his clawed hands his heart in a mock sign of pain. "Ah, Kakashi, I'm wounded that you forgot all about me." "Cut the crap, kid, and answer the damn question," Zabuza ordered him, bringing his right hand to the hilt of his legendary blade. "I'll give you a hint, he died a month ago. Give up? It's me, Naruto." The figure, now revealed to be Naruto, responded. "Don't lie, you stone bastard." Sasuke spat at him, taking out a kunai, his Sharingan eyes blaring at this imposter. "Yeah, the dead can't come back to life." Sakura responded like a parrot after a crush spoke, trying to keep up her act of being sad for her dead teammate. Haku, meanwhile, kept her eyes focused on him. During her travels with Zabuza, she's seen and heard some pretty bizarre stuff. For example, she saw some ordinary guy swallow 3 claymore swords down his throat, a guy who was fatter, bigger than any Akamichi, a shinobi who could control his 5-foot beard to kill a man, and many more weirder things. If this person claiming to be Naruto was the real deal, then this extraordinary event shattered anything she had seen in her young life. However, no one was willing to see it that way, and everyone would rather use their fists rather talk. So being the mediator like she always was when Gozu and Meizu got into a dispute, she got in between the 2 parties, effectually shutting them up. "If you really are Naruto," she started to say, drawing looks from everyone, "then you would have 3 things that only he would know or have." Zabuza realized what she was doing and smirked underneath his bandages. She was right, this kid. If he was Naruto, then he would have to prove it was him. "Lay it on me," Naruto replied, crossing his arms, and waited for her questions. Naruto would have a giant puncture wound going through his chest. "I need you to lift your shirt up to confirm it," she told him. Without any hesitation, Naruto lifted his torn shirt above chest level, causing a twinge of pink to rush up on Haku's face. She couldn't help but stare until Tezuna's voice snapped her out of her trance. "What was that, Tezuna-san?" she asked. "I said there is a hole-shaped wound on his back," Tezuna said again, smirking up a storm when he saw her blushing face, but decided not to embarrass the poor girl. After all, he was young once. Kakashi was also observing the supposed Naruto's body. He noticed that there were various lacerations in his muscled skin, most that were still healing up as well. But he focused on his chest area. Now he never stayed to see the results from his famous jutsu. For all he would know, this individual probably was hit by a lightning pincer maneuver attack from two Cloud Shinobi. So he decided to voice it. This isn't sufficient proof. He could have been attacked by two Cloud Shinobi in a pincer maneuver, he said, drawing looks from everybody. "Sorry, kid, I hate to admit it, but Kakashi's right. I've seen plenty of wounds like that," Zabuza added, effectively drawing suspicion back at Naruto again, who only sighed and pulled his shirt back down. Then this is the second one only he would know. "What was I wearing, and what do we talk about the day in the forest where I went to pick herbs?" Haku asked, drawing a surprised look from the Demon of the Mist, clearly not knowing about that tidbit of information. "You were wearing a pink sleeveless kimono with a white obi sash, and we talked about our purposes in our lives and those we care about." Naruto answered her like it was yesterday's news. This news surprised a lot of people, Zabuza, because his surrogate daughter actually talked to the enemy. While he wasn't mad at her, he was going to talk to her about this later. Kakashi's jaw would have fallen to the ground knowing his student, if he was a student, actually talked to another girl besides Sakura while stupidly talking to his enemy at the time. Sasuke, however, wasn't all that affected, but he was intrigued all the same. But Sakura and inner Sakura were inwardly fuming that her puppy, as she called him, would disobey her. Granted, she would never claim ownership to him, but she felt mad that her influence over the blonde wasn't as secure as she thought. And she decided to punch a hole in Haku's logic. "While I don't know what exactly happened between my teammate and you, but there could have been another person hiding where you two were. He or she could have reported it to the Tsuchikage, and he could have picked it up," she said, causing Naruto to narrow his eyes behind his mask. While Haku didn't want to agree with the pink-haired brat, and while it could not have happened, she could unfortunately be right. After all, stranger things have happened. So now it all came down to his last piece of evidence that could make or break this figure that could possibly be Naruto. Finally, that last question, "Are you ready?" she calmly asked, hoping beyond hope that this last question will prove her right. "I'm ready," Naruto replied, knowing that he might be in trouble if this last question failed. Naruto had blue eyes and had 3 whisker marks on his cheeks. "If you really are Naruto, I'm going to need you to remove your mask," Haku finally said after what seemed like hours to her. With not a shred of hesitation, Naruto brought his left hand on his mask and parted it to the side. He revealed a part of his chiseled right face that showed his 3 whisker marks, and his blue eye that a good amount of its warmth that sent chills down their spines. "I would show you more, but..." He parted his mask a little more to reveal jagged, still healing cut going across his nose. "My left side is horribly mutilated, and I really don't want to scare the kids." If there was any doubt in anyone's mind, it was blown away. There could be no further denying it. This person was indeed Naruto. Before anyone could say a word, Inari latched onto Naruto's back and let out 2 weeks' worth of emotions all over the back of his shirt. "Inari, I told you not to cry unless they were dash. Tears of happiness, I know." Inari interrupted the resurrected black-streaked blonde. "And these are tears of happiness." Naruto could only smile under his mask and knelt down so Inari could get down. "Naruto, where have you been? We all thought you were dead," Tezuna asked once the black-streaked blonde set Inari on his feet. "I was," he cryptically responded. "But your body was destroyed. Your flesh was all over the place," Kakashi stated, still a little skeptical that this was his student. "Unless your age is getting to you, a lot of stone shinobi, especially the bastard from the Explosion Corps, like to rub it in your face by writing insulting things on walls, and usually fucks with your minds." Naruto then turned his head to regard Tezuna. "And as to where I've been, I'm afraid I can't tell you. I need to report to the Hokage for this," he continued before turning back to his team. Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you all soon, he said before jumping off, causing the returning team to stumble before chasing after him. The entirety of Wave Country could only smile as their resurrected hero went back to his home. Kanal one day later. The trip back was uneventful. Okay, that was a huge lie because Naruto kept getting questioned for every little thing. Where were you? Why are you wearing that outfit? Why do you have a sword? It nearly drove him nuts. Haku and Sasuke respectfully gave him some space, but the other three wouldn't leave him alone. Zabuza was acting like a sword otaku, wanting to hold it, caress it, feel it, and cut something with it. He kept saying no, because he wasn't sure what would happen if another person held it, and Shinigami wasn't answering his mental calls, so he decided not to risk anything. Kakashi kept pulling the superior officer routine, demanding him to tell him where he was. His response was always the same, "I'll tell you later." He didn't want to be an ass, but he was under Shinigami's orders not to reveal anything until he spoke to the old man. And a god's orders defiantly overruled everyone's in the shinobi nations. Sakura, meanwhile, kept sweetly asking what happened to him in fake worry. While the Juggin, I, and him disagreed on many things, the sentient tool, and yes, it was a tool, gave him a peek into the pink-haired girl's mind. It almost made him want to maul her with his claws. QB forced him to grow with his demonic chakra during the month. Her thoughts were malicious thoughts about the two fox kits on his shoulders, orders from the civilian council to cripple him in the shinobi arts, abuse him for even the tiniest mistakes, and kill him if he was getting too strong by any means necessary. In fact, he nearly tore her face off when she reached for his mask. But Kakashi, being a mask wearer himself, slapped her hand away and lectured her on personal space, which he broke immediately before questioning him again. That was invading his personal space, in his opinion. Thankfully, it ended when they stood in front of the village gates, where they were immediately confronted by a squad of Umbu Black Ops. Kakashi Ataki, why do you have S-rank missing Nin Zabuza Momochi and two unidentified strangers in your midst? The white-cloaked leader of the group demanded, as he narrowed his eyes behind his tiger mask. Stand down, I'm just returning from a mission, and I'm going to report this to the Hokage about the situation, Kakashi explained to the Umbu captain, knowing that he would listen. After all, he was once his superior. The unnamed captain only nodded in response. He didn't trust the three figures worth a damn, but his former captain seemed to trust them. He ordered his men to place a hand on their shoulders, and they all disappeared in a small cloud of smoke. Within his office, the Hokage was waiting for them as the squad members appeared in his office. He could only narrow his eyes at the infamous Demon of the Mist, who single-handedly changed Water Country forever and killed many of his high-ranking shinobi during his days as a missing Nin. A girl who held an air of discipline and a calm aura. And finally, a demonic face stone ninja that brought back many foul memories. However, these three weren't the ones he was concerned about. Naruto wasn't anywhere in the group. Kakashi, why are these three with you? And where's Naruto? Sarutobi demanded the cycloptic Jounin. However, instead of Kakashi's answer, Naruto was the one who stepped up. I'm right here, old man, he said, drawing the aged Hokage's gaze. Don't lie to me, Naruto is Dash. Your full name is Hiruzen Sarutobi, nicknamed the Professor and God of Shinobi. Your teammates were Hamura Mitokado and Kohor Udatane. You became the Sandaime Hokage after the Nidaime sacrificed himself to allow you to survive in the first Great Shinobi War. You have never lost a battle. You have been recorded as the longest living and longest reigning Kage with the Sandaime Tsuchikage following behind you. You trained Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade Senju, who later became the three. Legendary Sannin, you have two sons, Asuma and Sinnoh Sarutobi, with the latter giving you a grandson by the name of Kinomaru Sarutobi. You have a contract with a monkey summons. You pay for my academy intuition because I couldn't pay it myself. And you keep your Ica Paradise book in your upper right-hand drawer. Naruto interrupted him as he listed off the things the old Hokage told him in his younger years, causing said Kage's jaw to drop onto his desk with a loud, thumping noise. Naruto, is that really Dash? Of course, who else would interrupt you and disrespect you and actually get away with it, old man? The black-streaked blonde interrupted the old Hokage once again, proving his point. Naruto, I told you to respect Hihokage. Sakura screeched out and swung her left fist at him, knowing he would take the hit like always. Oh, how wrong she was. In an instant, Naruto raised his right hand and blocked her punch. This surprised the occupants of the room, because it was no secret that the former full blonde let the pink-haired girl hit him. This was especially surprising to said girl. The Naruto she knew would let her abuse him. He was her puppy, an idiot, an orphan who would always be grateful to be in her mere presence. And yet he defied her right in front of the Hokage, the Umbu, and even her own team. The old man and I were talking. It's considered unladylike to interrupt two people, ain't it? Naruto stated, not even looking at her. Hell, not even addressing her by her name. Naruto's right, Sakura, it's rude to interrupt someone. Sarutobi mentally smirked, seeing her face. It was absolutely priceless. Now, Naruto, what happened to you? And why do you have the infamous Zabuza Momochi traveling with you? He asked the black-streaked blonde, not knowing this story would nearly give him a heart attack. First, I would feel better if your guards left, Naruto said as he glanced at the masked ninjas. Sarutobi only nodded and waved them off. Out of everyone who trusted in this room, Naruto was at the top of the list, and he knew that these Umbu members trusted the former blonde as well. After all, they protected him since he was a baby. He could also tell them on a later date. After the elite team exited the room, Naruto told him what happened, of course leaving out a few key details. He used Ishikawa's cache of information regarding operations in Stone Country. From what the deceased man remembered, there were rumors of secret experiments occurring somewhere in the mountains that made the country famous. And he used that to his advantage. During the remaining 3 weeks of getting dirty and tearing his clothes up while training, he contacted Kyuubi. He used his increased smarts to formulate a plan that his body was taken to said lab, brought back to life, and experimented on. In order to make it convincing, he told Kyuubi not to heal his wounds from his fight with Ishikawa, to look like he fought his way to freedom. It was a low blow to the only stone ninja he respected, but it was necessary to make his story more believable. And it was working if the look on the Sandame's face was any indication, and the small killing intent from Kakashi showed he hit a sore spot. So what you were telling me is that you died, were brought back to life, and experimented on. You believe you were trained in secret, then later escaped after seeing red and ran for what you described as a week straight, finally meeting up with your team? Sarutobi clarified after hearing the preteen story. He knew that there was such a lab during the last Great War, and it proved effective from the berserkers they created, which Naruto ironically wore one of their masks. But after Stone's defeat, it was closed down. That's what the reports were, at least. Yes, that is correct, Naruto responded. But my question is, where is it? And I heard that it was closed down after the last war, Kakashi demanded, knowing that if that lab was truly open, then they were in big trouble if Stone Country decided to attack them again. Naruto inwardly cursed his sensei for opening his big fat mouth. He of course didn't know where it was, nor did he know if it was open. All of his information were just rumors at best, and he honestly couldn't say, sorry I lied. I'm now the Shinigami's avatar, and I have to kill your old student, Uchiha that should be dead, and a guy named Danzo. Oh, and guess what? I'm Sasuke's cousin. That was when something clicked, and he almost stopped breathing. Sasuke. Sasuke was family. He was blood-related to Sasuke Uchiha. He couldn't believe it had taken him this long to realize this. For the first time since he became smart, he felt like an idiot. He realized with the start that Sasuke may very well be the only blood relative he had alive in all of Konoha. But he wasn't exactly sure if he liked that or not. I mean, Sasuke was an okay guy, but he could be a real asshole at times. His musings were brought to a halt as he heard the Sandame's voice. What? He questioned him as he snapped out of his trance. I said, do you remember where it is? The Sandame repeated. Quickly taking advantage of the question, the black-streaked blonde replied, no, I'm afraid not.